Chapter 2841. Although Sir God Le Yuan's divine soul power was very strong and he was very proficient in using the lion's roar, Night Sorrow's two divine souls fused together. It was simply a heaven-defying existence and was not inferior to any divine king in the divine world. The dragon's roar successfully subdued the lion's roar, and the remaining waves rushed towards Sir God Le Yuan. Good move. Faced with the remaining waves of the dragon's roar, Sir God Le Yuan snorted with a fake smile and completely dispersed the remaining waves with a roar. After a simple recovery, he took out a shining demon subduing pestle from his spatial artifact. He placed it in front of him and silently recited the incantation. After a moment, a total of 5 divine kings appeared in front of Sir God Le Yuan. The faces of these 8 divine king-level figures could not be seen clearly, but their aura was definitely at the level of a divine king. However, they existed in the form of shadows and were not the real divine king. Obviously, they were souls that had been purified by Le Yuan. You evil monk, you really do a lot of harm. I wonder which 5 divine kings have fallen into your trap. Looking at the 5 divine king's souls, Night Sorrow immediately knew that these people were definitely killed by Le Yuan personally. Moreover, when the other party's divine soul was about to escape, it was purified by a divine weapon. This kind of move was almost as evil as the dark creatures. Before Night Sorrow took action, he was completely angry because of his son, Yi Xiaoluo. At this moment, he felt that Sir God Le Yuan was completely strange. He could not help but wonder why there was such an evil Sir God in the area ruled by the Heavenly Buddha. This was completely different from their attitude of standing aloof from worldly affairs. Benefactor Yi, you are wrong. I have purified 5 evil people. Sir God Le Yuan realized that after he summoned the 5 divine king souls, the expressions of the various big shots around him changed. He immediately explained. Just as he finished his explanation, he roared, 5 kings overcoming disaster technique. After he roared, the 5 divine king souls immediately burst out with radiance and their aura soared. They were about the same as an ordinary lower divine king. After the 5 souls' aura soared, they immediately pounced on Night Sorrow like malicious ghosts. Why is it similar to the extraterrestrial demon's move? Night Sorrow could not help but be puzzled after seeing Sir God Le Yuan's move. He immediately opened the eye of the sea serpent dragon and observed the 5 souls in front of him. Yi Shan's expression immediately changed when he saw them. The 5 souls in front of him were not golden god kings. They were 5 god king level extraterrestrial demons. However, they did not have the aura of an extraterrestrial demon. Disguise. When he saw that divine monarch Fate had actually summoned 5 otherworldly demons, Night Sorrow no longer held back. He used the power of virtue to create 5 dragons and pounced on the 5 divine king extraterrestrial demons. Although not all the dragons of virtue created by Night Sorrow were at the level of the divine king, the power of virtue was the nemesis of the extraterrestrial demons. Although the 5 dragons could not devour the 5 divine king extraterrestrial demons, they could resist their attacks. For a moment, the situation was in a stalemate. You've been attacking continuously. It's time for you to take my attack. Night Sorrow had originally planned to give Sir God Le Yuan 3 chances to attack. However, after discovering the extraterrestrial demons, he did not plan to give him another chance. He roared and used the Samsara halberd to attack with the forbidden reincarnation spear. After the taboo reincarnation spear was upgraded, it would cause a lot of pressure to ordinary high-level god kings. However, faced with this attack, Sir God Le Yuan laughed and took out a wooden fish from his space dharma artifact. After this wooden fish was taken out, it immediately emitted a heart-palpitating golden light. The power of this golden light was unbelievably strong. It actually swallowed all the halberd light of the Samsara halberd. After the halberd light of the Samsara halberd's attack was swallowed, only the power of close combat was left. Le Yuan waved the demon subduing pestle in his hand and blocked it. After blocking Knight Sorrow's attack, Li Yuan revealed a smile as if he had everything under control. He said, "Looks like you can't do anything to me without using the sovereign divine weapon. Is that so? Then you can try." Knight Sorrow knew that Li Yuan was trying to provoke him. However, he did not want to use the sovereign divine weapon when fighting against a cultivator of the same level. He felt that it would be an insult to himself. Gentle Dragon Roar. After his attack was blocked by Li Yuan, Knight Sorrow realized that Li Yuan was not simple. He seemed to have a lot of divine weapons and secret treasures. This time, Knight Sorrow directly used the Dragon Roar to attack the 5 souls of the extraterrestrial demons in the void. The 5 souls of the extraterrestrial demons in the void were in a stalemate with the power of merit. Knight Sorrow suddenly used the Gentle Dragon Roar and immediately changed the battle situation, scattering one of the souls. The soul of the extraterrestrial demon that exploded was completely black in Knight Sorrow's eyes. However, it was gold in the eyes of others. Even ordinary sovereigns could not see the true color of these extraterrestrial demons. You've gone too far. After Knight Sorrow destroyed one of the extraterrestrial demon souls, the array formation was also damaged. Sir God Li Yuan immediately became angry. He took out another secret treasure from his spatial artifact. This secret treasure was a damaged small bowl. The small bowl carried a trace of Sovereign Divine Weapon's aura. This Sovereign Divine Weapon's aura contained obvious Buddhist power. Buddhist Sovereign Divine Weapon's aura. Originally, Knight Sorrow thought that Sir God Li Yuan was a spy sent by the extraterrestrial demons to the divine world. His methods basically came from the extraterrestrial demons. Now, he understood. Not only was Sir God Li Yuan proficient in some of the extraterrestrial demons' methods, he also mastered many of the Buddhist kingdom's methods. As such, he was even more difficult to deal with. You still dare to be absent-minded in the middle of a battle. Benefactor Knight, you have to be careful. Just as Yi Shang was pondering how to proceed, Celestial Lord Li Yuan threw the small bowl in his hand at him. When Sir God Li Yuan threw the small bowl, it looked like a fight between ordinary people. However, the pressure it gave off was close to that of a sovereign divine weapon. Although Sir God Li Yuan's God essence power, soul power, and physical strength were weaker than Knight Sorrow's, he could use a large number of secret treasures to fight. Moreover, his face was filled with confidence. It was obvious that he had other trump cards. Lord Knight Sorrow, let me deal with this broken bowl. It's a damaged sovereign divine weapon. Knight Sorrow was still thinking about how to deal with this method when little Tian, who had been attacked by the Clear Sky Pagoda, transmitted a message to him. He wanted to use Tian Yunbao's power to stop the small bowl's attack. No need. If it was an opponent of the same level, Knight Sorrow would never use his sovereign divine weapon without using a true sovereign divine weapon. Facing the small bowl's attack that was close to the sovereign divine weapon, he immediately used the Traistrums a battle mystic technique and dodged it with the dragon swimming steps. Chapter 2842. During the fight, Knight Sorrow was in a sorry state. However, he gritted his teeth and didn't use the Tian Yun Bao. This was his dignity as a cultivator. Divine Lord Li Yuan could use the damaged sovereign divine weapon when he wasn't strong enough. In Knight Sorrow's eyes, this was an ability. He had to rely on his own strength to break it. If he had to use the Tian Yun Bao against a divine lord, his Dao heart wouldn't be able to protect himself. Humph. If you don't use the sovereign divine weapon, you're definitely not my match. After gaining the upper hand, Divine Lord Li Yuan immediately smiled arrogantly. He was completely different from an ordinary monk. That's not necessarily true. Knight Sorrow, who was fighting against the small bowl, was clearly at a disadvantage and suffered some injuries. During the fight, he kept thinking of countermeasures. He wanted to understand why he was suppressed by the small bowl in front of him. After thinking for a while, Knight Sorrow felt that it was because he didn't understand enough of the sovereign divine weapon's power. During the fight, he used the sea serpent's eye to observe the rules of the small bull's attack. After understanding the rules contained within, the fight gradually became easier. It wasn't as difficult as before. Oh no! He seems to be able to see through the divine weapon's attack. I can't let him have an easy time. Seeing that Knight Sorrow was gradually adapting to the small bull's attack, Divine Lord Le Yuan immediately waved his demon-subduing pestle and summoned the remaining 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. They charged at Knight Sorrow together. In this way, the pressure Yi Shan faced was even greater. Good. Good. Facing Divine Lord Le Yuan's attacks, Knight Sorrow's anger was completely ignited. Knight Sorrow couldn't remember how long it had been since he was suppressed by a cultivator of the same cultivation level. At this moment, he exploded. All the power in his body was completely mobilized. His divine soul also completely fused together. While dodging the small bull's attack, he waved his Samsara heavenly halberd and stabbed at the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demon souls. Puff! Puff! After 4 consecutive noises, the souls of the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial devils were all blown up. Knight Sorrow, who had completely erupted, was like an ancient god of war, unstoppable. He actually forced out his strongest battle intent. Sir God Le Yuan said hatefully in his heart when he saw Knight Sorrow's behavior. Originally, he thought that Knight Sorrow would choose to retreat in the face of such a terrifying attack. At that time, he would continue to use his methods to make Knight Sorrow suffer even more. However, he did not expect Knight Sorrow to erupt with strength that almost surpassed the Divine Kings under such circumstances. That sort of horrifying strength was what the Divine Lord level Seer Yuan was completely unable to contend with. One force breaks all techniques. In an instant, Knight Sorrow had a further epiphany. It was as if his entire being had gone berserk, entering a whole new realm. His combat strength caused all the Divine King present to tremble in fear. Some of the Divine King had brought themselves into this battle, only to discover that they couldn't even withstand a single blow from Knight Sorrow. This made them despair. What sort of state is Knight Sorrow in? Even the Dark Moon ruler was flabbergasted when he saw Knight Sorrow's combat strength. Knight Sorrow's strength had increased by so much just by relying on the increase of his battle intent. This was very puzzling. His state seems to be called invincible battle intent. Only those who are invincible in the world can comprehend it. The illustrious ruler said solemnly, apparently in a bad mood. Invincible battle intent. Invincible in the same realm. Then when he becomes a ruler, will he surpass all of us here? The Dark Moon ruler asked gloomily. He was worried about the potential Knight Sorrow had displayed. After all, in the past few days, he had targeted Yi Shang several times. Invincible in the same realm. Only if he has the ability to become a ruler will he be able to pose a threat to us. The illustrious ruler messaged the Dark Moon ruler, his expression grim. You mean to say that we should just kill him? The Dark Moon ruler replied. Given his talent, if he becomes a Divine King, he'll be difficult to deal with. What I mean is that we should act as quickly as possible. The illustrious ruler transmitted, his voice brimming with killing intent. After saying this, she added, just like I did in the past, we should nip all threats in the bud. But he Gemini has chosen to protect him. If we act rashly, we might cause unnecessary trouble. The Dark Moon ruler's interest was piqued when he heard the illustrious ruler's words. However, when he thought of Gemini and Clearsound's warnings, he didn't dare to act. If we act against Knight Sorrow by ourselves, TNI and Clearsound will seek revenge. However, if we contact a few more rulers, the two of them probably won't dare to act rashly. The illustrious ruler continued, I've heard that the ruler of all heaven and Knight Sorrow aren't on good terms either. We can ally with him. The Seven Stars ruler's territory is adjacent to the Immortal Dominion, and there's constant friction between them. We can also persuade the Seven Stars ruler. Good idea. You go persuade the Seven Stars ruler, and I'll talk to all heaven. The Dark Moon ruler's territory was adjacent to the Immortal Dominion. If Night Sorrow continued to grow, the Dark Moon ruler's territory would be the first to be affected. He didn't hesitate to contact All Heaven. The All Heaven ruler had just lost his true body to Night Sorrow and was furious. Even with the threat of Enchanting, he still agreed to personally deal with Night Sorrow. As for the illustrious ruler, he went to contact the Seven Stars ruler with a cold expression. Night Sorrow was like a god descending upon the mortal world. After comprehending the invincible battle intent, his comprehension abilities had improved. He quickly comprehended the laws contained within the small bowl. It seems like I've bumped into the Divine King's barrier. After comprehending the broken sovereign artifact's laws, Night Sorrow wasn't at a disadvantage against it. Furthermore, when he used Samsara to attack, he also added in these laws, which made Divine Lord Li Yuan very uncomfortable. There's no other way. I can only use my final trump card. Seeing that the broken sovereign artifact couldn't suppress Night Sorrow, Divine Lord Li Yuan roared in his heart and took out an exquisite jade talisman from his spatial artifact. When the jade talisman was taken out, it immediately emitted a tranquil glow. This soft, verdant glow seemed to be able to calm everything in the world. Even Night Sorrow, who was in the middle of battle, felt his fighting spirit drop after being enveloped by this soft light. When he saw the subtle change in Night Sorrow's eyes, Divine Lord Li Yuan smiled faintly and tossed the jade talisman out. Not good. This is a sovereign jade talisman. After the jade talisman was tossed out, it rapidly exploded in the air. The enormous attack power was all directed at Night Sorrow. Even some of the sovereigns present couldn't react in time. The attack contained a boundless amount of black gas. This sovereign jade talisman had obviously come from a sovereign of the extraterrestrial demons. Li Yuan, who had unleashed this attack, had a resolute look in his eyes and a smile on his face. Chapter 2843. How dare you use the extraterrestrial demon sovereign's talisman against a god realm cultivator in Tianai City? Enchanting of the ethereal mountain was the first to sense the talisman's aura. He immediately rose to his feet in anger and prepared to attack. Enchanting said, "Let's wait and see. After all, Night Sorrow also has a sovereign weapon." Enchanting, what's wrong with you today? Are you going to protect your subordinate even though he used a taboo technique? Enchanting wasn't happy to hear this. He felt that Tianai was being too protective of his subordinate. Enchanting chuckled. I'm not protecting my subordinate. Their battle is a battle of karmic luck. It's best if we don't interfere. A battle of karmic luck? What kind of battle of karmic luck? Enchanting voiceless sound, who'd been silent, immediately asked. Night Sorrow is the strongest divine sovereign of the god realm, while Li Yuan is the strongest divine king of the ethereal mountain. Their battle is a battle of karmic luck between the god realm and the ethereal mountain. Enchanting explained, then continued, the most critical moment has arrived. We can only wait and see. How could your subordinate be the strongest divine sovereign of the ethereal mountain? Enchanting's words made many people understand why Li Yuan was so strong. He was almost on par with Night Sorrow. However, Enchanting wasn't willing to accept this. He felt that Enchanting was going overboard. After all, Divine Sovereign Li Yuan had learned many of Buddha's abilities. Back then, he hid his extraterrestrial demon aura and snuck into the Buddha kingdom to cultivate. After discovering him, I made a few calculations. I discovered that he and Night Sorrow were key figures in the battle between the God realm and the ethereal mountain. That's why I didn't expose him. I was waiting for today's battle. Enchanting continued to explain. His divination abilities were ranked among the top 3 in the entire god realm. Although his explanation was concise, all the hegemons present understood what was going on. Suddenly, the way they looked at the battlefield changed. Li Yuan is the strongest divine sovereign of the ethereal mountain. No wonder he's so strong. No matter what, I can't lose today's battle. Deva Buddha's voice wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Even Knight Sorrow, who was in the middle of the battle, heard the words, causing him to unleash an undefeatable battle intent and a strong determination to win the battle. Come on. So what if you have a sovereign's divine talisman? In the face of Divine Lord Li Yuan's ruler's rune, Knight Sorrow, who originally wanted to take the attack himself, took out his heavenly cloud bow and shot out a heavenly cloud arrow to block the attack. Knight Sorrow wouldn't have taken out the Tianyun bow if the other party wasn't from the ethereal mountain sect. Even if it was a sovereign-grade talisman, he was prepared to receive it personally. However, this matter concerned the fate of the celestial realm. He didn't want any accidents to happen. Boom! After the heavenly cloud arrow was shot, it directly collided with the divine talisman. However, it didn't completely neutralize the attack in front of him. It seems that this is a true attack from a sovereign. It's not easy to deal with. 5 Elements Arrow Formation. After the heavenly cloud arrow didn't have the desired effect, Knight Sorrow immediately shot out a large number of 5 Elements virtuous arrows to form the 5 Elements Arrow Formation to block Deva Buddha's attack. He knew that the creatures of the ethereal mountain sect were still afraid of the power of virtue. Old thing, so you discovered my identity long ago. So what? Today, I'll win this battle for the ethereal mountain sect. The virtuous 5 elemental arrow formation that Knight Sorrow shot out was very powerful and was the bane of dark creatures. However, it didn't completely deplete the sovereign-grade talisman's attack. Deva Buddha realized that Knight Sorrow's strongest attack wasn't able to deplete the divine talisman's attack. He immediately used the remaining energy of the attack to attack Knight Sorrow's body. You want to use the sovereign-grade talisman to harm Lord Knight Sorrow. Have you asked for my permission? Knight Sorrow's strongest attack was only able to delay the divine talisman's attack temporarily and deplete less than 30% of its power. When the divine talisman attacked again, Little Tian controlled the Tianyun Bao to meet it. Tianyun Bao, who had also erupted with his own strength, immediately blocked the attack. However, the current Little Tian had yet to reach the level of the Divine King. After forcefully controlling Tianyun Bao to unleash a sovereign-grade attack, he immediately fell into a deep slumber. Little Tian, how are you? Knight Sorrow, who hadn't expected Little Tian to unleash such a powerful attack, immediately sent a message after realizing that he had been injured. However, the reply he received was a long silence. I didn't think that he would be able to neutralize the sovereign's attack without the sovereign's help. Not simple. The 7-star sovereign, who had been silent all this time, sighed emotionally when he saw Knight Sorrow use Tianyun Bao to neutralize the sovereign-grade talisman's attack. At this point, the hegemon sent him a mental message. What do you think of the matter I mentioned? I don't want to become enemies with the entire god realm. Can't you see that Knight Sorrow represents the god realm's providence? The 7-star sovereign replied without even thinking. Humph. Upon hearing this, the sovereign coldly snorted. She glanced at the sovereign of all heaven and the sovereign of the dark moon. She felt that the 3 of them working together to deal with Knight Sorrow wasn't a bad choice. After all, no matter how strong he was only a divine lord. If the 3 sovereigns worked together to deal with the divine king, they would definitely be able to obliterate him. What? Aren't you happy that Knight Sorrow neutralized the sovereign-grade talisman's attack? Hegemon Tianai suddenly snorted. Hegemon Majestic Hegemon snorted, and Hegemon Majestic Hegemon immediately noticed. No. Hegemon Tianai, you've misunderstood. The sovereign felt like he had fallen into an icy cavern when he was noticed by Enchanting, so he politely explained. That's for the best. Enchanting glanced at the sovereign, then turned his head to watch the battle. He had personally set up this place. Although it had been baptized by a clash of sovereigns, the damage wasn't very serious. This was a completely miraculous feat. The other sovereigns could clearly sense just how powerful Enchanting was. Kill. I'll definitely kill you today. When Divine Lord Li Yuan saw Knight Sorrow use the sovereign's body to block the Divine Talisman's attack, a savage look appeared on his face. Moreover, he had already exposed his identity and knew that it would be very difficult for him to escape unscathed. He was prepared to put his life on the line. If you want to kill me, you won't be able to do so unless you bring out some true skill. Prepare to die. At this moment, Knight Sorrow felt like he was representing the God realm in battle. In fact, his invincible will to do battle increased even further. Using the Samsara halberd, he unleashed the most tyrannical attack in history, the forbidden Samsara spear. This attack didn't just contain the power of virtue, it also contained the origin energy of the God realm. He was prepared to instantly kill his opponent. He was going to use the providence of the God realm. Chapter 28:44. Very strong. You live up to your name as Sir God of Merit. However, it's impossible for you to kill me with such an attack. Sir God Li Yuan revealed an unprecedented ferocious expression as he faced Knight Sorrow's taboo reincarnation spear. He recovered his original appearance and transformed into an extraterrestrial demon. After transforming into an extraterrestrial demon, he roared coldly, "Remember my name, Sky Splitter Demon, you talk too much. Die." At this moment, Yi Shang, who had already attacked, interrupted him. To Yi Shang, there was only one name for the other party, and that was the extraterrestrial demon. Real Heavenly Demon Mark, activate. Faced with Knight Sorrow's fatal attack, Sky Splitter Demon suddenly roared and activated the mark energy on his body. There was a buzzing sound, and even the surrounding void vibrated for a moment. Then, he threw a punch at Knight Sorrow's attack crazily. From Knight Sorrow's point of view, the power of the punch was close to the attack of a master. It was extremely terrifying. Rumble. After a collision, both parties retreated to the edge of the arena. Real Heavenly Demon Mark. After Sky Splitter Demon activated Sky Splitter Demon Mark, his power increased by almost 10 times. This surprised Knight Sorrow. While Knight Sorrow was surprised, the rest of the people at the scene were also confused. Basically, they didn't know what it was. You don't know about Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign. How ignorant. Seeing that no one knew what Real Heavenly Demon Mark was, Sky Splitter Demon instantly revealed a mocking expression. I don't care if you're Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign or Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign. If you plot against the realm of gods, I'll kill you. Many people at the scene sighed with emotion because of Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign's name. There hadn't been a legend of a sovereign in the realm of gods for a long time. Knight Sorrow roared fearlessly and attacked Sky Splitter Demon again. This time, he performed Reincarnation Spear again. However, this time, he focused on Reincarnation Attribute. At the same time, he used Merit Dragonlocking Formation to bind Sky Splitter Demon so that he had nowhere to hide. Real Heavenly Demon Mark. The Sky Slaying Demon, who was trapped in a sealed space, did not panic. He once again activated the True Sky Demon imprint in his hand. The True Heavenly Devil imprint came from the True Heavenly Devil Sovereign. The power it could unleash was immeasurable. After the Heaven-Slaying Demon unleashed its power once again, the Heaven-Slaying Demon's body emitted an endless amount of black light. After the black light burst out, it once again faced Knight Sorrow's attack. This time, the collision between the two of them ended in a tie again. Why is the utmost exalted imprint only this powerful? The heaven-slaying demon was astonished by this result. He felt that the paragon's imprint should be able to unleash an attack that surpassed that of a sovereign. That was why he had kept it as a last resort. Now that he realized that he couldn't do anything to Night Sorrow, he couldn't understand it. Your so-called paragon's mark should have been damaged, right? I don't believe that it can protect you forever. Night Sorrow, whose attack was once again blocked by the true heavenly demon imprint, had no intention of retreating. He wielded the heavenly halberd of Samsara and charged towards the heaven-slaying demon once again. At this point in the battle, Night Sorrow decided not to use his fancy spear techniques anymore. Instead, he directly engaged in close combat with his opponent. The heaven-slaying demon had already used up most of his moves. The true heavenly demon imprint was the only life-saving talisman left. In the face of Night Sorrow's attack, the weaker heaven-slaying demon instantly became flustered. As for the true heavenly demon imprint, after helping him time and time again, it finally exhausted its energy and completely disappeared. The moment the true heavenly demon imprint disappeared, the heaven-slaying demon's expression changed. He didn't expect that his final trump card would be unable to withstand Night Sorrow's attack and lose its effect so quickly. What's wrong? You don't have the confidence to fight anymore after losing your trump card? Night Sorrow asked coldly when he saw the heaven-slaying demon's reaction. In this battle, he represented the realm of the gods. It involved the issue of fate. Now that he had completely gained the upper hand, he instantly felt more relaxed. While the heaven-slaying demon was in despair, he attributed his failure to the true heavenly demon imprint. He thought to himself that if it wasn't for the true heavenly demon imprint, which wasn't as strong as the sovereign said, he wouldn't have used up the sovereign's jade talisman so easily. If he had used the jade talisman in his sneak attack, he would have had a chance of winning. However, since things had developed to this point, it was futile to say anything. In the following period of time, although the heaven-slaying demon tried his best to resist, he was still brutally defeated by Night Sorrow. After killing the heaven-slaying demon, Night Sorrow successfully obtained the power of virtue that the heaven-slaying demon transformed into. The power of virtue that the heaven-slaying demon transformed into was equivalent to 5 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. This was the perfect supplement for Night Sorrow. Moreover, after killing the heaven-slaying demon, Night Sorrow even received a slight reward from the realm of the gods. This was an unexpected gain. Yi Shang, you represented the godly monarchs of the godly realm and defeated the #1 godly monarch of the ethereal mountain sect. This is a cause for celebration. I will give you one chance to enter the Skysplit Tower. You won't have to participate in the battle, Sovereign Tianai said as soon as the battle ended. He also ordered people to set up a table and chairs for Night Sorrow. After Night Sorrow sat down next to Sovereign Tianai, the Buddha sovereign smiled and said, "Reality has proven that you are the one destined for the God realm. I hope you won't blame me for what happened today." "Ha, Sovereign Buddha, what are you saying? If you wanted to, you could have killed the heaven-slaying demon at any time, but you brought him to me. There must be a reason for you to do so." Night Sorrow understands. Night Sorrow replied with a smile. The Buddha sovereign took out a sarira from his spatial artifact. This is the sarira of an eminent monk of the Buddhist kingdom. You might be able to break through to the Divine King level soon. Take it. Thank you, Sovereign Buddha. Night Sorrow didn't stand on ceremony with the Buddha sovereign's gift. He reached out and accepted it. Sovereign Tianai continued, Night Sorrow has just fought for the God realm and defeated the strongest divine lord of the ethereal mountain. Shouldn't you all express your gratitude? After all, even if Night Sorrow is strong, the God realm is strong. I will give Night Sorrow the song, Swallow the Mountains and Rivers. As soon as Sovereign Tianai finished speaking, Sovereign Clear Sound took out a guqin and began to play it in front of everyone. Her zither music was as dense as a drizzle, but it gave people a soul-stirring feeling. Knight Sorrow had only heard a few notes when he was completely immersed in it, entering a special state of mind. As for the others present, they all envied Knight Sorrow. Sovereign Tianai sees him as the future of the god realm, and Sovereign Clear Sound is playing the guqin for him. Not even the other sovereigns have the right to enjoy such treatment. Knight Sorrow is truly blessed. As for the other sovereigns, they weren't on good terms with Knight Sorrow, but they couldn't possibly stand against the god realm. Chapter 28:45. Good Song. I can clearly sense that I'm one step closer to the Divine King realm. I've even comprehended a trace of the Sovereign's laws. Knight Sorrow listened to the unvoiced Sovereign's song from beginning to end, immersing himself in it for a long time. It took him quite a while to recover. At this point, the remaining 7-star sovereigns, Dark Moon sovereigns, and all heaven sovereigns all presented their gifts, regardless of whether they were willing or not. Knight Sorrow wanted to refuse, but Sovereign Tianai stopped him. On this day, Sovereign Tianai seemed to want to protect Knight Sorrow in front of the other sovereigns, letting them feel how important Knight Sorrow was to him. To everyone's surprise, the mighty Hegemon was unexpectedly generous. He had actually given away a complete God King level cultivation technique. Knight Sorrow didn't have much of an impression of this sovereign, but he still thanked him. However, as he exchanged pleasantries with the sovereign, Knight Sorrow felt that something was amiss. As someone who cultivated the power of virtue, he could sense a hint of enmity from the sovereign. There shouldn't be any enmity between us, right? Could it be that she really likes to kill geniuses like the legends say? Although Knight Sorrow could sense the sovereign's enmity, he didn't show it on his face. In his heart, however, he began to ponder the reason. The first reason he could think of was that he was extremely jealous and couldn't stand others being stronger than her. When she discovered a genius appearing in the divine world, she immediately chose to kill him. At the same time, he recalled that the sovereign's people had colluded with the extraterrestrial demons. In his heart, he began to wonder if the sovereign had some sort of relationship with the extraterrestrial demons. These words had too great of an impact. Without proof, no one would believe them. Knight Sorrow secretly noted this down and prepared to investigate it when he had the chance. After the sovereigns finished presenting their gifts, Sovereign Tianai smiled and said, "Knight Sorrow, your time is precious. Go to Skysplit Tower first. As for your family, I'll help take care of them." He was actually prepared to let Knight Sorrow enter Skysplit Tower first. This was an enormous amount of faith. Hearing this, all the sovereigns present could sense how important Sovereign Tianai was to Knight Sorrow. The Dark Moon sovereigns and all heaven sovereigns, who had been itching to make a move, hesitated, whether or not to attack Knight Sorrow. "Sister why don't you stay with Xiao Ke and I go to Skysplit Tower first?" Hearing Sovereign Tianai's words, Knight Sorrow turned to Lin Piaomiao. "Yes. With Hegemon Tianai's protection, you don't need to worry about me and Xiao Ke. Moreover, I don't even need to participate in the competition. I only need to persuade little Luo when he encounters an opponent that he can't handle. Don't worry." Lin says. At this time, Yi Shan looked at Yi Xiao Ke and said, "You haven't been in the Divine Lord realm for too long and you are still a lower Divine Lord. You don't need to force yourself too much in this battle. If you encounter a strong enemy, you must know when to advance or retreat." "Yes. Father, this time, your son is following you to see the world. I never thought I'd be in the limelight." Yi Xiao Ke nodded obediently. Before he came here, he wanted to see the world with his parents. He didn't think that he would be able to shine in the battle of the gods, which was highly regarded by the entire god realm as a low-level god sovereign. Because his expectations were low, he wouldn't fight to the death. You have to control yourself." Yi Chang spoke a few more words with Yi Xiao Ke before summoning Yi Xiaoluo from his spatial artifact. He rose to his feet and gazed at the numerous sovereigns present. May I know which sovereign can help my son recover? Yi Chang will be eternally grateful for your help. He'd used his second soul to try to help Yi Xiaoluo recover, but it hadn't been very effective. He could only place his hopes on the sovereigns in front of him. Before the other sovereigns could speak, Sovereign Tianai waved his hand. The heavenly Buddha ruler laughed and waved his hand. The extraterrestrial demon controlling him has already died in battle. He'll recover on his own. It's not a serious problem. It's like a strange cultivation. So that's how it is. I understand. Knight Sorrow relaxed somewhat upon hearing Sovereign Tianai's explanation. He sent Yi Xiaoluo back into the clear sky pagoda. Seeing that Knight Sorrow was done, Sovereign Tianai laughed. Let's go. I'll take you to the Skysplit Tower. The group arrived at the base of the Skysplit Tower. Hegeman Tianai said, the situation within the Skysplit Tower is very simple. You just have to charge upwards. Charge up to as many levels as you can. The higher you go, the more you'll be able to acquire. Once you reach the limit and acquire what you need, the Skysplit Tower's Paragon will send you out. Are you ready? I'm ready. Knight Sorrow glanced at the Skysplit Tower, then nodded. The Skysplit Tower is a 5-sided pagoda. Each time it opens, 5 people can enter. This time, however, it's open for Knight Sorrow. This is an extra entry, it won't take up any of the spots. Knight Sorrow, you can choose any door you like. After speaking, Sovereign Tianai opened the Skysplit Tower. Upon seeing that Knight Sorrow could choose any door he wanted, many of the people present were so envious that their eyes turned green. However, Sovereign Tianai didn't give them any chance. He didn't even mention Knight Sorrow's family. After Knight Sorrow entered, he completely shut the door. After entering the Skysplit Tower, a misty space appeared before Knight Sorrow's eyes. Moments later, a body of energy appeared and attacked Knight Sorrow. After dodging a few times, Knight Sorrow didn't sense anything special about it. He punched out, shattering the body of energy. The shattered body of energy transformed back into energy, which then flowed towards a corner of the space. Moments later, a flight of stairs appeared. Going up the stairs, Yi Shan went straight to the next floor. As soon as he entered, 2 more bodies of energy appeared and attacked Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow once more destroyed these bodies of energy with a single punch. Just like that, he continued to climb upwards. After 10 or so floors, the energy bodies guarding the floors began to display various attributes. Given Knight Sorrow's understanding of attributes, dealing with these energy bodies wasn't a problem at all. In a single day, he reached the 33rd floor. This speed was already a record for the Skysplit Tower. Naturally, his rating was a light blue, which represented perfection. The baptism he received was also unprecedented. Luckily, Sovereign Tianai and the others hadn't paid attention to Knight Sorrow and had instead gone back to host the Tianai Assembly of Heroes. Otherwise, they definitely would have been completely stunned. Knight Sorrow didn't know about this. He sat quietly on the 33rd floor for a while, then rose and hurried towards the 34th floor. Knight Sorrow continued to stroll through the next few floors. To him, the trials of the Skysplit Tower were nothing at all. Chapter 2846. The 64th level was equivalent to the second 31st level, but the pressure was much greater than the first 31st level. However, Knight Sorrow's understanding of attributes had already widened the gap between him and an ordinary Divine Lord. Moreover, he had experienced a similar test on the Sky Cloud Staircase. Therefore, although he had expended some effort, he still passed without any suspense. After the 65th and 66th levels, even though Knight Sorrow had surpassed all Divine Lords since ancient times, he still expended a lot of energy. After passing the 66th level, Knight Sorrow felt that if he continued, he would run out of energy. However, just as Night Sorrow was about to continue, Sky Split Tower suddenly rewarded him with energy, replenishing his energy. After absorbing the energy, he felt that not only was his energy restored, but it was also stronger than when he was at his peak. After recovering quickly, Night Sorrow sat on the 66th level and pondered for a moment, recalling his experience on the 66th level. After organizing his thoughts, Night Sorrow's understanding of attributes had improved. He was also one step closer to the Divine King's realm. It seems like breaking through the Divine King can be put on the agenda. Night Sorrow was in a good mood and continued climbing to the 67th level. The 67th level was different from the previous levels. The first 33 levels were gray, but now they were pure white. It was a completely different atmosphere. After stepping on the stairs, Night Sorrow knew what was going on. It was still pressure, but it was pressure that targeted his divine soul. I see. After discovering the difference, Night Sorrow continued climbing. Now that he had two divine souls, his combined divine soul strength should have surpassed that of any divine lord in history. Moreover, it was very likely that no one would be able to surpass him in the future. The pressure on his divine soul was nothing to scoff at. However, as the real climb began, even Night Sorrow felt immense pressure. In the past, the Sky Split Tower was always climbed by 5 people, and many people paid attention to it. At this moment, Night Sorrow was like a lonely traveler, following his heart as he moved forward. 91. 92. After climbing all the way to the 97th level, Night Sorrow once again felt the pressure of the 64th level. Although the spiritual energy is powerful, it still consumes a lot of energy. Night Sorrow struggled to climb to the 98th step. He felt that the consumption of his divine soul was particularly great. Ever since he started climbing, this was the first time he had felt such great pressure. As he continued to ascend, Night Sorrow felt an unprecedented consumption of his divine soul, but he gritted his teeth and persevered. He thought to himself, there is no one who does not suffer, no one who does not face difficulties. I have to challenge my own limits. When he was halfway up the stairs, Night Sorrow realized that he couldn't walk any further, because the energy suppressing his soul was too strong. It wrapped around his head in divine sense C, forming a restriction, and his soul was like a blade. Night Sorrow's soul power changed its state, turning into a soul blade that cut in all directions, causing the boundless pressure to be unable to form a state of binding him, and he continued to move forward. Even so, he still felt an enormous pressure. With every step he took, the suppression grew stronger. This completely aroused Night Sorrow's tenacity. He threw his head back and let out a long roar, completely erupting. He even used the power of virtue. In the end, he successfully climbed to the 99th step. After successfully ascending to the 99th step, Night Sorrow was in a good mood, even though his divine soul was almost completely exhausted. He took out the heavenly Samsara halberd and smashed it into the ground. Halberd in hand, he stood in place. At this moment, all 5 windows of the Sky Split Tower lit up with a golden light. Night Sorrow wasn't too sure what this dazzling light represented. However, Enchanting, who was presiding over the duel, felt his divine soul tremble. He sighed. Peerless talent. Not bad at all. I just don't know if you have the ability to challenge the final step. Did something happen to Night Sorrow? Hegeman Clear Sound, who had noticed the change in Enchanting's expression, immediately sent him a message. I can only say that Night Sorrow won't bestow upon me in the future. Enchanting sighed. In truth, he had fainted when climbing to the 99th step. Night Sorrow might very well have surpassed him in terms of talent. However, he found it hard to accept. No cultivator was willing to admit that others were stronger than them, let alone the number 1 person in the god realm, Enchanting. Then I understand. Hegeman Clear Sound smiled faintly when she heard Hegemantinya's message, but she didn't say anything else. Congratulations. You've become the second cultivator to reach the 99th step. The first one was already unconscious when he reached here, so you're the first one to reach here. Just as Hegeman Clear Sound and Hegemantianai were conversing, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Night Sorrow. Are you the Paragon Tower Spirit? Asked Night Sorrow, holding the halberd of Samsara in his hand. In truth, he knew very well that it couldn't be anyone else in a place like this. That's right, it's me. Would you like to know your own talent evaluation? Asked the Paragon Tower Spirit. Of course, please enlighten me. Said Night Sorrow, intrigued. Do you know my evaluation of talent? There's no need to evaluate anything below the 50th step. The 60th to 69th step is excellent, the 70th to 79th step is mortal, the 80th to 89th step is earth grade, the 90th to 98th step is heaven grade, and the 99th step is peerless. As for the 100th step. At the 100th step, the Paragon Tower Spirit paused, then asked, do you still have the strength to attempt the 100th step? I can give it a try. How do I do it? Replied Night Sorrow confidently. I didn't expect you to be so much stronger than Hegemantianai. The Paragon Tower Spirit sighed, then continued, you can try walking all the way to the 99th step. This is a path that no one has ever walked before. Then, the Tower Spirit Venerable moved and made way for him. He bowed slightly and made an inviting gesture. All right. I'll give it a try. Yishang's heart surged with battle intent as he replied. He had a natural desire to conquer heights that had never been conquered before. Buzz. Night Sorrow had just walked up the steps when a wave of energy broke through his divine domain and descended upon his divine sea. What followed after was endless darkness. His surroundings were pitch black, and his body was surrounded by the smell of soil. Night Sorrow felt like he was being buried alive. Suffocation, pain, and helplessness attacked him continuously. He couldn't use any divine essence energy, nor could he use any divine soul power. He could only silently endure this helplessness. Helplessness. No, that's not me, Night Sorrow. I, Night Sorrow, am the divine king of the immortal world. I will never compromise. In the midst of despair, Night Sorrow suddenly roared and tore apart all restraints. Chapter 28:47. When the black-scaled lion pounced, Night Sorrow felt as if he had returned to the past. He raised the black spear with his right arm and stabbed it into the black-scaled lion's abdomen, passing through its back and killing it. After dealing with the black-scaled lion, the scene in front of him changed. Scenes of his cultivation flashed before his eyes. In an instant, Night Sorrow felt as if he had gone through the entire process of cultivation again. He felt as if he had ascended 90,000 miles. Then, he suddenly woke up. He found himself at the top of the Skysplit Tower. You are the first cultivator to appear here. How does it feel to stand in the clouds and look down on everything? After Night Sorrow stood at the peak, the Venerable Tower Spirit asked with a smile. Even Hegemantianai had only climbed to the 99th level. Now, he had reached the 100th. I don't feel anything. Everything is calm. Yishang calmly replied as he glanced at the Tower Spirit Venerable. At this moment, his state of mind was in harmony with all things. He didn't have many thoughts, unlike those who had climbed to the top. There was no uncontrollable joy, nor was there any shock. He was completely indifferent. Your state of mind is 1 in 10,000. Night Sorrow's reply was simple, but the Venerable Tower Spirit's comment wasn't simple. Even Hegemantianai hadn't been as calm as Night Sorrow back then. Now, his state of mind was close to invincible. Perhaps it's because I'm about to embark on an extremely difficult path. Night Sorrow said calmly as he looked at the clouds in the sky. To him, reaching the top of the sky-split tower wasn't enough. He wanted to stand at the top of the eternal sovereign world and solve all the problems in the God realm. That was a danger that no one in the God realm could see, but it could come at any time. It was for this reason that his cultivation had risen so quickly. You're still young. No one can estimate how far you can go in the future. The venerable tower spirit didn't understand Night Sorrow's state of mind. He continued, now that you've reached the top, I can give you some rewards. For example, I can help you upgrade the grade of your divine weapon. Upgrade the grade of my divine weapon? My divine artifact should be very difficult to upgrade, right? Night Sorrow immediately handed over the reincarnation halberd. The reincarnation halberd was already close to becoming a dominator artifact. If it was upgraded further, it would become a true dominator artifact. Night Sorrow felt that it was impossible. After receiving the Samsara heavenly halberd, the tower spirit venerate smiled awkwardly and said, it is indeed very difficult to improve it. However, I can get rid of the impurities in it. Your divine artifact is made of decent materials, but your technique isn't perfect. You can improve it greatly. Good. Then I'll have to trouble you. Night Sorrow thanked him. The Samsara heavenly halberd was a partner that had accompanied him as he grew up. The feelings that Night Sorrow had for it were not something that Tian Yun Bao and the others could compare with. He naturally hoped that the Samsara halberd could advance quickly. It's all right. This is the reward you deserve. I'm already sorry that I can't help you upgrade the grade of your divine artifact. As he spoke, the tower spirit venerable used the power of the sky-reaching tower to remove the impurities from the Samsara halberd. Because it wasn't being reforged, and because the sky-reaching tower had time rules, Night Sorrow left the sky-reaching tower only half a month later. By then, the battle for the divine sovereign position had already ended. Although Yi Xiaokei had done his best, his strength was still lacking. In the end, he'd placed fifth. He wasn't very satisfied with this result, but Night Sorrow and Lin Piaomiao both felt that it wasn't bad. After that, the family of three watched the battle for the Divine King in peace. After the battle for the Divine King, the 5 spots to enter the sky-reaching tower were decided. Naturally, none of these spots belonged to the Immortal Dominion. Thus, the 3 members of the Yi family weren't very interested in how high they'd climb. After bidding farewell to Hegemen Tianai and Hegemen Clear Sound, they left Tinya's territory and returned to the Immortal Dominion. Father, I heard that those with good talent can climb to the 90th level of the sky-reaching tower. How many levels have you reached? Yi Xiaokei asked curiously on the way back. No weaker than others. When Night Sorrow had left the sky-reaching tower, the tower spirit had asked him to keep it a secret. Thus, he'd answered vaguely and didn't reveal the secret of the 100th level. Upon hearing this, Yi Xiaokei naturally understood what it meant. He smiled and gave Night Sorrow a thumbs up. Father, you're truly domineering and mighty. You have to work hard too. Participate next time and fight for a chance to enter the sky-reaching tower. Lin Piaomiao stood to the side and began teaching Yi Xiaokei. Being taught by his mother, Yi Xiaokei smiled and immediately changed the topic. Father, how's Brother Xiaoluo's recovery? There aren't any changes at the moment, but since the Heavenly Buddha said so, there shouldn't be any problems. Night Sorrow replied to Yi Xiaokei, then entered the Clear Sky Pagoda to check on Yi Xiaoluo's condition. There weren't any problems with his body, but he'd fallen into a deep slumber. It shouldn't take long for him to recover. After Xiaoluo recovers, his strength should increase quite a bit. The 2 of you should participate together next time. Night Sorrow left the Clear Sky Pagoda and said to Yi Xiaokei. From the looks of it, Yi Xiaokei and Yi Xiaoluo's talents were among the better in the family. Yi Shang was very much looking forward to their achievements. However, he didn't want to express it personally, for fear of putting too much pressure on his two sons. Okay. Father. What's your next plan? Do you want to break through the Divine King's realm in peace? Yi Xiaoke replied respectfully and asked. I'll go to the Ninth Heaven Temple to look for the Heavenly Phoenix's 1000 transformation elixir and save everyone who's trapped. Knight Sorrow replied. He was ready to go to the Ninth Heaven Temple to look for the recipe for the Heavenly Phoenix's 1000 transformation elixir and the last ingredient needed for the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array. However, he hadn't mentioned the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array to Yi Xiaoke yet. While the father and son were talking, the family of three quickly returned to the Domain Master's manor. After arriving at the Domain Master's manor, Knight Sorrow accompanied his family to dinner. Then, he found an empty courtyard and practiced his spear with the Samsara halberd. After arriving at the Divine World, Knight Sorrow was facing more and more pressure. The opportunities to practice his spear in peace were getting fewer and fewer. Now that he wielded the Samsara halberd, which had been completely purified, there was a great improvement. After practicing for a while, Knight Sorrow was sure that the Samsara halberd was now the best weapon among the half-step sovereigns. Phew! It seems that the Divine King's realm is not far away. In the process of practicing his spear, Knight Sorrow realized that he was getting closer and closer to the Divine King's realm. At this moment, the carefree feeling in his heart completely exploded. Like the wind, like a dragon. Samsara. Forbidden. Like the wind, like the dragon spear. Chapter 28:48. This wind dragon spear was something that Knight Sorrow had come up with based on the attribute changes in the heaven-reaching pagoda and the changes in the reincarnation heavenly halberd. Although the name was a little tacky, it was much stronger than the forbidden reincarnation spear. The beginning attribute and the reincarnation attribute. One was like the wind, silently moistening things, while the other was like a dragon, soaring in the 9 heavens. Good spear. The Fire Phoenix King, who was watching Knight Sorrow practice his spear in the clear sky pagoda, couldn't help but praise him when she realized that he had developed a spear technique that could crush the Divine King. The Dragon Sparrow King was actually very surprised. He felt that if Knight Sorrow continued to improve at this rate, he would soon be able to fight against a ruler. However, after thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "The spear technique is good, but the name is still a little lacking. Why don't we call it the 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear? 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear. It doesn't quite fit, but let's call it that." When Yi Xiong heard the Dragon Sparrow King's words, he smiled and said indifferently. He named the spear technique the 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear. Lord Knight Sorrow, you said that you were going to the 9 Heavens Temple with me and the Fire Phoenix King. The Dragon Sparrow King continued to ask. He had never heard of the 9 Heavens Temple, but he understood that it was definitely an incredible place. Yes, I will naturally bring you guys along, but there might be unpredictable dangers there. I always felt that it wasn't simple, so I've been holding back this trip until now, Knight Sorrow said. Xiao Tianxian had once reached the ruler level in the 9 Heavens Temple, which meant that the opportunities there should have been taken away, so the dangers there shouldn't be too great. However, Knight Sorrow had a bad feeling. This feeling was indescribable, like a premonition. After chatting with the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King for a while, Knight Sorrow said, "Something doesn't feel right. Let me upgrade Tianyun Bao again before we set off." In the following period, Knight Sorrow used up all his resources to raise Little Tian from the Divine Lord level to the Divine King level. After Little Tian stabilized at the Divine King's level and was barely able to resist a sovereign's attack, Knight Sorrow announced to his family that he was heading to 9 Heavens Temple. "Brother Knight Sorrow, it's fine if you can't get it. Don't force yourself. Brother, the way things are now isn't bad." Mo Qianshan, who no longer had a human form, understood that Knight Sorrow had taken the risk for them. Otherwise, with Knight Sorrow's potential, he could have naturally advanced to the Divine King if he had stayed in the mansion to cultivate. Ha! Brother, if I don't help you recover, Night Sorrow, will have a hard time untangling the knot in my heart. Don't be so courteous. Seeing Mo Yuqian in such a state, Night Sorrow said with heartache. However, thinking that he might be able to treat the other party, his mood immediately became much better. At this time, Long Tianqing also walked over and slowly opened her mouth to say, Night Sorrow, I'll bring Big Brother Yuan and go with you. Senior Tianqing, you can't do that. I have a bad feeling about this trip. Although I'm not too sure what we'll face, it'll definitely be very difficult. Night Sorrow opened his mouth and said, rejecting Long Tianqing's suggestion. There was one thing that he did not say. He kept feeling that he would encounter a sovereign-level opponent on this trip. Otherwise, he would not have those feelings of panic in his heart. A sovereign is a sovereign. As long as I break through to the Divine King level, I might be able to fight. People grow in adversity and erupt in despair. It's time to start the final battle in the divine world. I believe that my destiny will let me hold on. When he was about to enter the immortal divine realm, Night Sorrow thought fiercely. He was prepared to enter seclusion completely at this time and advance to the Divine King level. Then, he would cultivate a clone and head to the eternal supreme world. Therefore, this might very well be his main body's last time leaving the immortal divine realm. Lord Night Sorrow, where is the Nine Heavens God Temple? After leaving the immortal divine realm, Dragon Sparrow King asked curiously. In the prestigious sovereign's territory. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to explain. Right at this time, a hint of foreboding suddenly flashed across his heart. But looking around, he did not discover anything. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to ask, Fire Phoenix King, did you notice anything just now? I have a feeling of being followed. I didn't discover anything. Fire Phoenix King answered truthfully. Then things are even more not simple. If I didn't sense wrongly, then there's a sovereign following us. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to say a sentence and immediately increased his speed to the limit, using the profound heaven-roaming dragon step to rush into the distance non-stop. Furthermore, in several cities, he continuously used teleportation formations. After more than a month of shuttling, that feeling of being followed slowly dissipated. Shook it off. We have to seize this opportunity to head to the Nine Heavens God Temple. The irritating feeling of being followed disappeared and Night Sorrow immediately rushed toward the Nine Heavens Sacred Palace in the ruler's region. Xiao Tianxian had only told him the location, but the others did not know. Night Sorrow was not too worried that someone had set an ambush there. After rushing to the valley where the Nine Heavens God Temple was located, Night Sorrow directly entered the Nine Heavens God Temple. After Night Sorrow's figure completely disappeared, the prestigious Sovereign, All Heaven Sovereign, and Dark Moon Sovereign appeared one after another. The three of them looked at each other, and the prestigious Sovereign said, if this matter was done secretly, Sovereignty and I definitely wouldn't have discovered it. What do you all think? Do you want to attack with me? Attack! I want to kill him with my own hands. All Heaven Sovereign said viciously. He was still brooding over the fact that Night Sorrow had destroyed his doppelganger. As for Dark Moon Sovereign, he smiled and said, if I didn't want to attack him, I wouldn't have used a trick to conceal myself from his senses. Hee hee. Good. Then let's do our best to kill Night Sorrow in the Nine Heavens God Temple. The prestigious Sovereign laughed sinisterly and said, but after we kill him, how are we going to split the spoils? If I'm not mistaken, he has 2 sovereign artifacts on him this time. I want a sovereign artifact. If it weren't for my methods, he would have discovered that we were following him long ago. We wouldn't have had this opportunity. Before the All Heaven Sovereign could speak, the Dark Moon Sovereign spoke first. He felt that attacking in the Nine Heavens God Temple was beyond Sovereign Tinya's control, and it would be easier to hide the truth. Comparatively speaking, he should be the one to take the credit. I also want a sovereign artifact. As long as we can get a sovereign artifact, we can join forces and deal with sovereignty and I. We won't have to fear him at all. If the three of us join forces, we should be able to deal with sovereignty and I. But if Sovereign Voiceless helps us, our chances of victory will be much lower. What I mean is that after we kill Night Sorrow and get the sovereign artifact, we immediately go to Sovereign Voiceless territory and kill her. As long as we can kill her, each of you will get a sovereign artifact. I don't want it. The prestigious sovereign said coldly. What? You still want to kill Sovereign Voiceless? Chapter 28:49. If the three of them worked together, killing Night Sorrow would be as easy as crushing an ant. However, killing Hegemon Voiceless Sound would cause a huge commotion. It was very likely that Hegemon T&I would come to their aid while they were killing Hegemon Voiceless Sound. At that time, the three of them would have to face Hegemon T&I, Skysplit Tower, and Hegemon Voiceless Sound. Even with Tianyun Bao and the Sky Cloud Staircase, they wouldn't necessarily be able to win. What? Are you still Hegemons? Are you scared out of your wits over such a small matter? Hegemon Dark Moon and All Heaven saw the reactions of Hegemon Dark Moon and Hegemon All Heaven. He sneered, if we didn't have the guts, we wouldn't have done what we're doing. As long as we kill Night Sorrow, Hegemon T&I and Voiceless Sound will definitely stand up for him. After all, they've already said that they won't let any Hegemons attack him. What you say isn't without reason. However, killing a Hegemon for no good reason would be a huge blow to the interests of the God Realm. If we really kill Hegemon Voiceless Sound, it would be no different from betraying the God Realm. Hegemon Dark Moon thought for a moment, then continued, I'm not afraid of being cursed. However, I don't want to implicate the entire Shishu clan. All Heaven, what do you think? Hegemon Dark Moon was extremely displeased to see Hegemon Voiceless Sound attack. Her idea was to stir up the waters of the God Realm as much as possible. However, Hegemon Dark Moon was clearly very conservative. He only wanted the Hegemon artifact, not Hegemon Voiceless Sound. Thus, she wanted to use Hegemon All Heaven to persuade Hegemon Dark Moon. Upon hearing Hegemon Dark Moon's question, Hegemon All Heaven laughed vulgarly. I do want to attack Voiceless Sound, but that's only after I get the Hegemon artifact. What do you think? Hegemon Dark Moon. You're right. Let's kill Night Sorrow and get the Hegemon artifact. Then we'll figure out how to split it and what to do next. Hegemon Dark Moon said. Suddenly, she had another idea. Should we wait for him here, or go in and kill him? Hegemon Dark Moon asked cautiously. There had been a ruler who had fallen in the Nine Heavens Shrine. He felt that it was an ominous place and did not want to go in. When the sovereign heard this, he chuckled and said, if it weren't for the fact that we wanted to kill him inside, we would have been able to fool everyone. Why don't we just make a move on the road? Let's go in. All right. I agree with you on this matter. Ruler Dark Moon nodded. His desire for a sovereign artifact had reached its peak. The truth was that the Sovereign Lord of All Heaven's desire for Tianyun Bao was just as strong. After his clone had been destroyed by Night Sorrow, the Sovereign Lord of All Heaven had been tempted. Now that the opportunity had presented itself, he didn't want anything to go wrong. Therefore, he wanted to be the first to enter the Nine Heavens God Temple. However, the three rulers of Tao did not sense any presence of Night Sorrow after entering the Nine Heavens Sacred Palace. What's going on? Even if he left, it's not like we can't sense his aura. The All Heaven ruler said anxiously when he couldn't find Night Sorrow's aura. As a ruler, can't you be a little more calm? The Sovereign Lord said disdainfully when he saw the All Heaven ruler's reaction. Everything has a cause and effect. Since he didn't leave behind any aura, He must have discovered our presence and used some sort of concealment technique. That's probably the case. Should we split up or go in together? The Dark Moon ruler had been using his divine sense to scan his surroundings this entire time. As he looked around, he asked for the hegemon's opinion. Since we've already done it, we can't give him any chance to turn the tables. The Sovereign Lord looked around and said, what we need to do is set up a seal on the door that he can't break. Then, we can slowly push into the temple. All right. This time, he won't be able to escape. The All-Heaven ruler smiled wretchedly and set up a ruler-level formation at the entrance. Then, the three of them began a carpet search. From the entrance, they searched the depths of the temple bit by bit, not missing a single spot. Lord Night Sorrow, if they keep searching like this, they'll catch up to us sooner or later. What should we do? 3 God Kings, there's no way they're a match for 3 hegemons. While the 3 rulers were searching, the Dragon Sparrow King said worriedly from within the Clear Sky Pagoda. Night Sorrow was currently hiding in the depths of the 9 Skies Temple, using the projection of the formation to observe the movements of the 3 rulers. To be honest, I sensed danger, but I didn't cancel the plan. Naturally, I have something to rely on. Night Sorrow explained to the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King, I have divine talismans left behind by Ruler Tianai and Ruler Voiceless. As long as I crush them, they'll be able to sense it. Now that I've already crushed them, we just have to hold on for a while longer in the temple and they'll catch up. Going from Ruler Tianai and Lord Voiceless area to the Sovereign Lord's area wasn't too far for the 2 rulers. They should arrive soon. Night Sorrow judged that as long as the 2 of them arrived, today's crisis would be easily resolved. So, we still have those 2 backing us up. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, the Dragon Sparrow King relaxed and asked, are we going to keep going in or what? Keep going in. Let's get the things left behind by Sect Master Xiao Tianxian first. Night Sorrow said before continuing, Dragon Sparrow King, give me a few speed talismans you refined. Okay. I have 3 more here. Lord Night Sorrow, take them all. The Dragon Sparrow King handed over the jade talismans he had refined and then looked at the Fire Phoenix King. Fire Phoenix King, aren't you also able to refine special talismans? Why haven't I seen you do it? The 7 rulers chosen by the Ancestor Phoenix could each refine a talisman they were good at. The Dragon Sparrow King was good at refining speed talismans that could triple one's speed. My special ability is to refine Nirvana Rebirth talismans. However, the consumption is relatively large and it will take me millions of years to recover. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't want to refine them. The Fire Phoenix King revealed her special ability while shaking her head. Every time she refined a Nirvana Rebirth talisman, she would use up 90% of her blood and sweat. It would take her many years to recover. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, she absolutely wouldn't refine them. This ability of yours is really amazing. In comparison, mine is absolutely insignificant. The Dragon Sparrow King smiled. Just from the name of the talisman refined by the Fire Phoenix King, one could tell that it could revive people. It's best not to use the Fire Phoenix King's special ability if you can. Chapter 2850. Yes. Unless it's to save myself or someone important, I won't use it. The Fire Phoenix King replied seriously. She told Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King that she wouldn't use this move casually and that they shouldn't treat it as a normal skill. That's what I think too. Night Sorrow replied. As he observed his surroundings, he said, our main goal is to enter the depths and find what Xiao Tianxian left behind. The 2 of you, stay in the Clear Sky Pagoda for now. I might need your help later. All right. We should be prepared to take action at any time. The Dragon Sparrow King glanced at the Fire Phoenix King, and the two nodded at the same time. The two of them had high hopes for Night Sorrow. The potential he had displayed was definitely stronger than some of the sovereigns. The Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King had already discussed in private. After entering the Eternal Paragon domain and meeting the Ancestor Phoenix, they would continue to follow Night Sorrow and grow together. After all, the two of them couldn't possibly hug the Ancestor Phoenix's thigh after entering the Eternal Paragon domain. Growing together with Night Sorrow was a shortcut for them to become sovereigns. Let's go. After summoning Cao Ling, Night Sorrow took the Clear Sky Pagoda and quickly flew through the Nine Heavens Shrine. He headed toward the depths of the shrine. Along the way, Night Sorrow had been using concealment runes and hadn't left any traces behind. However, when he encountered some strange beasts or puppets in the Nine Heavens Shrine, he had been forced to leave behind some traces. And these traces were clues for the three sovereigns chasing after him. Sure enough, the net of heaven grinds slowly but surely. He still left some traces behind. The sovereigns, who had been chasing after Night Sorrow, smiled in satisfaction when they saw the traces left behind in the void. At that moment, the Dark Moon ruler said, "We're getting closer and closer. We have to be careful. After all, a sovereign has fallen here before. Don't worry, we're all paying attention." The illustrious ruler wasn't pleased with the cautious ruler of the Dark Moon. She responded coldly, then continued in the direction Night Sorrow had gone with the other two. Meanwhile, Night Sorrow had already arrived at the entrance of the Nine Heavens Shrine's inner hole. "Big brother Night Sorrow, there's something good inside," Cao Ling said excitedly as they approached the inner hole. She was very sensitive to treasures, so she was very happy. "Good, it seems we found the right place. However, why did Sect Master Xiao Tianxian insist on leaving it here? I'm afraid there's a deeper reason." Although Night Sorrow had encountered some resistance and broken a few arrays, they weren't a threat to him. He couldn't understand why Sect Master Xiao Tianxian had placed the treasure here. "Big brother Night, go." Ling didn't sense any danger, so it should be safe. Cao Ling asked when she saw that Night Sorrow hadn't moved from the entrance. "Let's go. Let's go." Night Sorrow still didn't understand Xiao Tianxuan's intentions, but he still walked into the inner hall. At this moment, the inner hall was completely peaceful. There was no danger at all. On an altar in the inner hall, there was a package. Night Sorrow took the package and saw the recipe for the Heavenly 1,000,000 Transformations pill, as well as some other ingredients. These ingredients had obviously been used up a lot and had been left behind. It seems that Sect Master Xiao Tianxian became a ruler in this place back then. Most likely, he had chosen to ascend after becoming a sovereign. That's why he left it here. But according to legend, the Nine Heavens Shrine is extremely dangerous. Why don't I see any danger today? After obtaining the Heavenly 1,000,000 Transformations pill and some other ingredients, Night Sorrow continued to observe the inner hole. At this moment, he suddenly had a thought. Not good. At this moment, Sovereign Illustrious, Sovereign Dark Moon, and Sovereign All Heaven had already caught up. Night Sorrow had already sensed their presence. He put Cao Ling into the Clear Heaven Pagoda and sent a voice transmission to Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King. Not good. They're here. Sovereign Illustrious, Sovereign Dark Moon, and Sovereign All Heaven. I wonder if there are others. What? The three sovereigns have caught up. What do we do? There's no way out here. Hearing this, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King both sucked in a cold breath. Dragon Sparrow King shouted. No matter how strong the three of them were, they couldn't be a match for the three sovereigns. As for Sovereign Tianai and Sovereign Voiceless, they definitely wouldn't arrive so soon. Yeah. The inner hall is only so big. We have nowhere to run. Fire Phoenix King's tone was full of worry. Although she was talented, she didn't think she had the ability to fight a sovereign. After all, in the divine realm, the sovereigns were the true masters. No, the road. There's still a way. The altar in front of us is the way. Knight Sorrow took out a large number of divinity crystals and other things from his spatial artifact. He discovered that the altar in front of him was not only an altar but also a teleportation array. However, he didn't know where it could teleport to. The three sovereigns were close and would arrive soon. Knight Sorrow didn't have time to think about where the altar would lead. He directly activated the altar and teleported over with the clear heaven pagoda. Buzz! There was a loud rumble. While feeling dizzy, Yishan appeared in a forest of towering ancient trees. They appeared in a 7-colored altar. Knight Sorrow didn't have time to observe his surroundings before he took out the Tianyun bow and destroyed the altar. Although this might cause them to not be able to find the way out, it could prevent the three sovereigns from appearing here. Phew! We're safe for now, but we don't know where we are. The 9-Heaven Divine Hall was unexpectedly safe, there was no danger at all, this was definitely abnormal. Appearing here at this time, Knight Sorrow felt even more strange. Hence, he released his divine soul power and confidently investigated the surrounding environment. With this investigation, Knight Sorrow was immediately shocked. This place was actually full of the aura of dark creatures. And the feeling that it gave Knight Sorrow was very similar to the Dark Abyss's sovereign creature that he had encountered before. Could this be the Dark Abyss? Knight Sorrow, who was investigating, sighed. At the same time, he summoned Cao Ling and said, Ling, see if you can sense anything. There doesn't seem to be any aura of treasures here. Furthermore, the aura is very evil. As Cao Ling spoke, she was somewhat trembling. Clearly, the aura here made her feel very uncomfortable. Sorry, I forgot about the soul-devouring wind. Putting Cao Ling into the clear heaven pagoda again, Knight Sorrow immediately apologized. Chapter 28:51. Even the sun in the sky was black and emitted a dark light. However, there were almost no dark creatures nearby, so the teleportation formation had not been destroyed. Now that it had been destroyed by Knight Sorrow, he had to think of a new way to leave the dark abyss. Sigh. This is really bad luck. We've just left the dragon's den and entered the tiger's den. After Knight Sorrow told him about the dark abyss, the dragon Sparrow King in the clear sky pagoda sighed helplessly. At this time, the Fire Phoenix King asked Knight Sorrow, Lord Knight Sorrow, can you obtain merit power by killing dark creatures? Yes. If I can kill a few Dark Divine King consecutively, I can indeed become a Divine King very quickly. However, we've appeared in the Dark Abyss, and who knows how many Dominator-ranked dark creatures there are. If we kill 1 or 2 Divine King, I'm afraid we'll be hunted down by a few Dominators. Knight Sorrow said. Although the Dark Abyss was not as terrifying as the Ethereal Mountain, there was definitely more than one Dominator. If I'm not wrong, the 3 Dominators behind us should have followed us, right? Can we think of a way to make use of them? The Fire Phoenix King in the clear sky pagoda thought of the Dominators and said. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow nodded and said, it's possible. However, it's not much different from dancing on the edge of a knife. We have to be careful. Lord Knight Sorrow, what do you plan to do? The 2 of us will do our best to cooperate. Although the Dragon Sparrow King was a little afraid, he did not retreat. He knew that in such an environment, cowardice was useless. Okay. Let's observe the surroundings first. If there's a teleportation formation, then record the location. We'll kill a few before leaving. Since we're here, we can't leave empty-handed. If we can't find the teleportation formation, then we'll have to keep a low profile. We'll kill a few dark divine king without anyone knowing so that I can become a divine king. After Night Sorrow explained, he said confidently, if I can advance to divine king, there's a high chance that I'll be able to fight against juggernauts. For others, entering the dark abyss was a complete tragedy. But for Night Sorrow, although coming here was dangerous, it was also accompanied by a huge opportunity. At this moment, he finally understood what Xiao Tianxian was planning. He was definitely using the dark abyss to force out his potential and quickly evolve into the divine king. Lord Night Sorrow, are you going to act alone or with the two of us? The Dragon Sparrow King knew that Night Sorrow wasn't bragging. He also hoped that Night Sorrow could quickly break through to become a divine king. The two of you stay in the dense forest in front of us and check if there are any teleportation formations in the surroundings. If you encounter the three hegemons, don't fight back. Just surrender. If they ask me anything, just answer them truthfully. Night Sorrow looked at the surroundings. This was where the soul-devouring wind was the weakest. There were no dark creatures at all. It was safest for the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King to stay here. The only danger they faced was that they might encounter the three hegemons. At this moment, the Fire Phoenix King asked doubtfully, Lord Night Sorrow, are you preparing to leave the dark forest to find a target to kill? Yes. I'll try to advance to the Divine King before the Dark Abyss hegemons can react. As for the two of you, if you find a teleportation formation, pay attention to setting up a concealment formation and wait for me nearby. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he walked out of the forest to find a target. The Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King searched side by side for a teleportation formation. This matter was more important than Night Sorrow's advancement to the Divine King. The two of them searched very carefully. As for Night Sorrow, after walking out of the dark forest, he immediately saw a large lake in front of him. This broken amber lake was very large, but the lake water was pure black. Using the sea serpent's eye, Night Sorrow's expression changed. He saw the skeletons of thousands of cultivators by the lake. These skeletons no longer had any flesh on them. Clearly, they had been here for many years. Although he didn't know how they died, Night Sorrow guessed that they must have been captured and brought to the dark abyss. They must have been very miserable. There are dark creatures in the lake. They seem to be a race. Yishang used his soul power to scan the entire lake. He discovered that there were tens of thousands of dark creatures in the lake. These dark creatures looked similar to cultivators, but they were all formed by dark energy. Every one of them looked dark. At the bottom of the lake, there were many caves. They were distributed among them and were basically cultivating. In the entire race, there was a divine king, 6 divine lords, and 10 million exalted gods. As for the feather god, there was almost no one. The cultivators outside should have been killed by you and eaten by you, right? Next, I'll avenge them. There were no other races within 10 million miles. Before Night Sorrow attacked, he set up a divine king-level trap formation on the surface of the lake. Then, he dived to the bottom of the lake, found the divine king's position, and attacked him directly. This time, he didn't use the Tianyun Bao at all. He used the Samsara halberd and the 9 heavens reincarnation spear to kill him directly. After absorbing the power of virtue brought by the godly monarch, Night Sorrow used the law of speech to kill all the cultivators who weren't godly monarchs and convert them into power of virtue. As for the 6 divine lords, after discovering Night Sorrow's strength, they fled separately. However, they were all blocked by the trap formation and couldn't escape at all. After absorbing all the power of merit they converted, Night Sorrow's power of merit was very close to the level of the Divine King. However, there was still a long way to go before he could really break through that barrier. He absorbed all the useful things at the bottom of the lake and continued to rush to the next destination. This time, there was only one Divine King in the race. He was suddenly attacked and didn't even have time to send out a signal for help. It didn't affect Night Sorrow's following actions at all. Soon, Night Sorrow arrived in front of a huge beehive. This beehive looked like a planet and seemed to be connected to the sky and the earth. In the beehive lived the dark magic bee race. After using the power of his divine soul to check, Night Sorrow confirmed that there were 4 divine kings in the beehive. He was instantly energized. He thought to himself, as long as I absorb the power of merit converted by these 4 divine kings and the dark magic bees, I'll probably advance my power of merit to the level of the divine king. In that case, I can find a place to break through the level of the divine king in peace. Thinking of this, Night Sorrow immediately moved towards the beehive. Compared to the big lake just now, there were more cultivators' corpses near the beehive, and they looked more miserable. Chapter 2852. This time, Night Sorrow was discovered by the patrolling dark demon bees as soon as he appeared. He did not have time to set up any arrays. Compared to the other races in the lake, the dark demon bees were much more alert. Looks like this time will definitely alarm some even more powerful existences. Let's kill. I will try to raise my power of merit to the level of the divine king. The moment Night Sorrow was discovered, he knew that the overlords of the dark abyss would know about it, regardless of whether this battle went well or not. He did not think too much and charged towards the dark beehive. How dare a Sir God from the deity world be so arrogant to come to the dark abyss to die? You are the first one in 10,000 years. After Night Sorrow appeared, the 4 leaders of the dark demon bees gathered together and surrounded Night Sorrow with a large number of dark demon bees. For divine kings, more than 20 Sir Gods, and hundreds of millions of high gods and feather gods were behind them. Such a lineup was the strongest in the dark abyss, except for the tribes that had given birth to the overlords. The leader of the dark demon wasps snorted disdainfully as he faced Night Sorrow, who had come alone. A Sir God from the deity world is enough to deal with your army. Yi Shang replied coldly. At the same time, a strong fighting spirit rose from his body. An ordinary Sir God would have run away in the face of such a large army of dark demon bees. However, Night Sorrow would not do so. To him, the divine king was not much of a threat. Especially the divine king, who was among the dark creatures, would be affected by the power of merit and would be severely restrained. Enough to deal with the army of dark demon bees. What an arrogant tone. Who's going to fight it? The leader of the dark demon bees had wanted his subordinates to charge at Night Sorrow and kill him instantly. However, he was infuriated and changed his mind. Leader, I will go and kill him. The number 1 Sir God of the dark demon bees immediately turned into a human and knelt before the leader. All right. Wang Yuan, go and kill this arrogant fellow. Don't kill him. It's rare for a cultivator from the god world to appear in the dark abyss. Capture him alive and we'll torture him, just like we did in the past. Yes. Great leader. Wang Yuan responded. He stared at Yi Shang with an evil gaze and said gloomily, if I were you, I would surrender. If I were you, I would surrender. Night Sorrow sneered at Wasp Abyss arrogance. However, if he put himself in Wasp Abyss's shoes, he would have the same thoughts as Wasp Abyss. After all, everyone knew that the Divine Lord was weaker than the Divine King. How dare you! Wasp Abyss was infuriated by Night Sorrow's rebuke. Wielding his wasp-tail needle sword, he attacked Night Sorrow. This method is somewhat familiar. I'll give you a dignified death. Seeing Wasp Abyss's wasp-tail needle sword, Night Sorrow immediately recalled the battle. At that time, he had used the Wasp King's wasp-tail needle sword to great effect. Now that he was attacking Wasp Abyss, he would kill him with the Samsara halberd. Turning it into virtuous energy was considered giving him a dignified death. What? He's so strong. This is the Divine King's strength. I'll deal with him. The fourth leader of the dark demon bees saw that Night Sorrow had killed the strongest Divine King in a single strike. He immediately took out his divine weapon and attacked. His divine weapon was not the wasp-tail needle sword, but a long sword that he had taken from a cultivator from the god world. This long sword was a king-grade divine weapon. It was of good quality, but it had suffered considerable damage. Long sword of the god world, I'll take you back. Seeing the Divine King's weapon in the hands of the dark demon bees, Night Sorrow immediately roared. You want to take away this king's divine weapon and return to the god world? Dream on. But you won't stand a chance. Wasp Tribulation, the fourth leader of the dark demon bees, saw that Night Sorrow was interested in his divine weapon and immediately attacked. Although he was a dark demon bee, he was very proficient in using sword techniques after taking human form. His attack was very powerful. It's a bit like drawing a tiger from a cat, but it's not enough. Forbidden Spear. Facing Wasp Tribulation's attack, Night Sorrow could clearly feel that he was stronger than the Divine Emperor, but only as strong as the lower Divine King. He was no threat to him at all. After Night Sorrow used the Samsara halberd to attack with the Forbidden Spear, the fourth leader of the dark demon bees had yet to react. Wasp King, the leader of the dark demon bees, turned pale and said, "Attack together and kill him. Also, send someone to inform ruler Immerse." After saying that, he, the second leader, and the third leader attacked Night Sorrow together. However, they were still a step too slow and did not stop Night Sorrow. Wasp Tribulation, the fourth leader, was still killed by Night Sorrow's spear. As for the Divine Emperor's divine weapon, it let out a mournful cry after Night Sorrow obtained it. Go and have a good rest. I'll bring you back. Night Sorrow used his hand to caress the sword and used the power of virtue to purify the evil aura on it. Then, he kept it in the clear heaven pagoda. The sword that was kept in the clear heaven pagoda realized that it had been purified and let out a long cry. At this moment, Night Sorrow realized that the leader of the dark demon bees had sent a divine emperor to report. He immediately locked onto his aura and started fighting with the dark demon bees. He was prepared to get rid of the dark demon bees in front of him and use the Horn Race's secret technique to chase after the divine emperor. They're finally attacking together. It's time for me to use some powerful techniques. Night Sorrow did not want the battle to drag on for too long. He immediately used his verbal execution ability to kill all the dark demon bees below the Divine Emperor level. Then, he took out Tian Yun Bao and let little Tian, who had already advanced to the level of the Divine King, control Tian Yun Bao to fight with him. With Tian Yun Bao's cooperation and the Nine Heavens Reincarnation Spear, Night Sorrow quickly killed all the remaining Divine King and Divine Emperors in the Dark Demon Bees. After absorbing the power of virtue converted from the Dark Demon Bees and destroying the Dark Beehive, Night Sorrow's power of virtue directly advanced to the level of the Divine King. With the qualitative change of the Divine King's level, Night Sorrow immediately felt that he was dozens of times stronger. As long as I increase my cultivation to the level of the Divine King, I'll have the ability to protect myself in front of a dominator. After killing the Divine Emperor that the Dark Demon Bees sent to report, I'll return to the forest area. After Night Sorrow destroyed the Dark Beehive, he slightly felt the change in his power of virtue and activated his secret technique to chase after the Divine Emperor of the Dark Beehive. However, after chasing for less than an hour, Night Sorrow realized that something was wrong. He clearly felt that he had entered the territory of the Dark Master. Continue chasing, or turn back immediately. After entering the territory of the Dark Master, Night Sorrow immediately sensed his aura. At this moment, he was very close to the Divine Emperor of the Dark Beehive. Chapter 2853. Hopefully, the concealment rune will be of some use. Night Sorrow stopped and thought for a moment. He was certain that it was impossible for him not to chase after him. If the dark demon be divine lord in front of him reported this to the dominator-level dark creatures, then he would be trapped in the dark abyss. That would be too dangerous. Luckily, your speed isn't that fast. You didn't use a teleportation formation. Or a voice transmission stone. After making up his mind, Knight Sorrow set up some concealment runes on himself and activated the Treastrimsa battle mystic technique. He raised his strength to the peak and used the dragon roaming heaven steps to chase after him. As he went deeper, the aura of the Dark Dominator became stronger and stronger. He also became more and more nervous. However, at this time, the Divine Lord of the Bee clan who was sending a message to the Dark Dominator could already see him with the Sea Serpent's eye. At this moment, Knight Sorrow's pupils suddenly shrank. Because he saw another Dark Race Divine Lord appear opposite the Divine Lord of the Bee clan. The two of them were about to encounter each other. Time to act. Seeing the two Dark Race Divine Lords encounter each other, the Divine Lord of the Bee clan began to explain Knight Sorrow's attack. Knight Sorrow immediately used the Merit Dragonlock formation from afar and sealed the two Divine Lords in a sealed space. Before they could react, he inserted the Samsara halberd into it. The two Dark God Lords weren't weak among ordinary Divine Lords. However, they paled in comparison to Knight Sorrow. There was no comparison at all. They were both penetrated by the Samsara halberd. Luckily, I acted in time and didn't expose myself. After successfully killing the two Divine Lords, Knight Sorrow immediately felt relieved. However, when Knight Sorrow collected the two corpses, he was shocked to find that the Divine Lord who came later was holding a crushed voice transmission stone. In an instant, Knight Sorrow's expression changed. Oh no. I don't know how far he's gone. From the looks of it, escape is the best strategy. Knight Sorrow knew that he couldn't stay here for long. He immediately turned around and rushed toward the periphery of the Dominator's territory. As he didn't go too far into the Dominator's territory, he quickly escaped from the Dominator's territory. If I didn't hear wrongly, that hegemon should be called hegemon Moxie, right? After escaping, Knight Sorrow immediately heard a loud roar coming from Moc's territory. Divine King, listen up. Follow me and search for the cultivators of the Divine Realm. Above the Divine King. This meant that hegemon Moxie knew how strong I was. Doesn't that mean that basically everything has been exposed? Upon hearing hegemon Moxie's roar, Knight Sorrow immediately sped up, heading back in the direction he had come from in search of King Dragonsparrow and King Flamingo. After entering the towering forest, he immediately transmitted his voice to the two of them and asked about their harvest. Before Knight Sorrow left, he had asked the two of them to look for a teleportation circle that could be used to leave. He wondered if they had found anything. Lord Knight Sorrow. We didn't find any teleportation arrays, but we did find a very strange underground palace. After Knight Sorrow spoke to the voice transmission stone, Dragon Sparrow King's voice immediately came through. His tone was slightly excited. Knight Sorrow could hear his excitement and asked doubtfully, "What kind of underground palace is it? Are there a lot of treasures inside?" He remembered that Cao Ling hadn't sensed any treasures nearby. There are a lot of cultivation resources inside. No, not a lot, but a lot, a huge amount. Cultivation resources. Dragon Sparrow King said excitedly. It's not a trick, is it? As Knight Sorrow asked doubtfully, he chased after the two of them. In the dark abyss, there was a large amount of cultivation resources. Anyone would find it strange if they heard about it. At first, the two of us didn't believe it either, but reality has proven that this is indeed a real cultivation resource. At this moment, King Flamingo's voice also came through. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow first felt that this matter was even more reliable. However, he soon realized that something was wrong. Although there was nothing wrong with their words, it was obvious that they were a little too excited. Both of them were at the peak of the upper divine king, and they didn't need many resources. What they needed more was a large amount of sovereign laws. They wouldn't be so excited just because they found some cultivation resources. Not good. The two of them might have been captured by the three sovereigns behind them. I can't walk into the trap. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King's words didn't seem wrong on the surface, but when combined with the situation, Night Sorrow immediately realized that something was wrong. He knew that Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King had said such things because they had no choice. Moreover, their words had obviously been modified. The three sovereigns couldn't hear anything wrong, but Night Sorrow felt that it was completely different. I'll think of a way to save you. It was very difficult to save Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King, but Night Sorrow didn't want to give up. After all, the two of them were brought out by him, and now they were helping him. Although that was what he thought, Night Sorrow knew that he couldn't say such words out loud. He couldn't even hint at them. He pretended not to know what was going on and replied, "Wait for me, I'll follow the clues and rush over." "Good. We'll wait for you. When you arrive, your cultivation will soon reach the Divine King level." Dragon Sparrow King's voice soon arrived. In truth, it was the Dark Moon ruler who had thought of this line. Dragon Sparrow King still felt very uncomfortable after saying it out loud. He wasn't sure if Night Sorrow had figured out the strangeness of the situation. This forest didn't even have dark races, so it was definitely lacking in resources. How could there be an underground palace? Very good. Let's set up an illusion and trap array. That little bastard is very alert, we can't let him discover any clues. The All-Heaven ruler and Night Sorrow had talked to each other quite a bit, so they knew that he had many tricks up his sleeve. He immediately had the illustrious ruler and the Dark Moon ruler cooperate with him to set up the array. I don't know if Lord Yishang will fall for it. Fire Phoenix King thought worriedly after seeing the three rulers' reactions. She and Dragon Sparrow King were in despair when facing these three peerless experts. They also knew that Night Sorrow was no match for the three of them. The gap between a ruler and a divine lord was an insurmountable gap. Sigh. Dragon Sparrow King sighed when he saw the expression on Fire Phoenix King's face. With the three rulers watching, they had no intention of escaping or sending a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. They knew that it would be impossible. They could only pray secretly. At this time, Night Sorrow arrived at the teleportation array where the three of them had appeared. This array had been completely destroyed and couldn't be used at all. There was no chance of repairing it. It seems that the three rulers must have come to this forest through other teleportation arrays. That means that everyone has a chance to leave the dark abyss. Chapter 2854. Normally, it was impossible to save the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King from the three juggernauts. Night Sorrow, in particular, was too weak to have a fair conversation with Juggernaut's Juggernaut, Dark Moon Juggernaut, and All-Heaven Juggernaut. Moreover, Juggernaut Tianai and Juggernaut Voiceless might not be able to track him to the dark abyss. Night Sorrow's only advantage was that he was in the dark. The only thing I can use is that teleportation array. If I can lure the three juggernauts away and threaten them with the teleportation array, it might be useful. Night Sorrow, who had set up a concealment array for himself, felt that there were very few things he could use. One of them was to take a risk and lure the Dark Juggernaut into a clash with the three juggernauts. As long as they encountered each other, there would definitely be a great battle, and no one knew how things would develop. At that time, he might have a chance to find a solution. However, using a Divine Lord's cultivation to lure Juggernaut Immerse was an act of suicide. For now, he had to be fast and lure the Divine King from Lord Immerse's territory to the three juggernauts. As long as they fought, the Dark Abyss Juggernaut might discover the three Juggernauts. The three Juggernauts were guarding the exit. As long as no Juggernauts appeared in the Dark Abyss, they probably wouldn't escape quickly. There should be quite a lot of chaos. Yes. If I take a risk, I should be able to reap some benefits. Knight Sorrow immediately left the dark forest to search for his target. His luck wasn't bad, and he soon saw two divine kings of darkness walking side by side. These two divine kings of darkness stood side by side on a flying shuttle, constantly using their divine sense to search for Knight Sorrow's figure. They really get what they want. Seeing the two's movements, Yi Shan immediately pretended to be recuperating below and released a trace of his aura. This aura was very weak. If one didn't look carefully, they definitely wouldn't be able to discover it. However, the two divine kings of darkness standing on the flying shuttle were carefully searching for Knight Sorrow's figure. Now that he had exposed such a big flaw, it was natural that he would be discovered. Below. He's recuperating underground. He must have suffered some serious injuries. Upon discovering Knight Sorrow's aura, the eyes of the two divine kings of darkness lit up. After reporting this to Juggernaut Immerse, they looked at each other's view. Just a few thousand kilometers, Knight Sorrow's direction, controlled his speed, and fled's direction. You want to escape? Do you think you can escape? Chase. 1-1 Juggernauts immediately, the goddesses. Another dark deity king warned, be careful, the cultivators of the celestial realm are extremely cunning. God. Juggernaut, how God is his God. 1-1s, he, to, sss, if he's to. God. If we can take him down, it will definitely be a great achievement. It's just that I don't know how many people have come from the God realm this time. As the other dark divine king spoke, he shouted, the shuttle doesn't seem to be able to catch up to him. Let's think of something else. Don't lose him. Don't worry. This king's shuttle hasn't been fully activated yet. The dark divine king, who was controlling the shuttle, immediately dripped a drop of dark blood on the shuttle to activate it. After being activated, the speed of the flying shuttle increased by a lot. It was getting closer and closer to Knight Sorrow. It's all right. It's just as I expected. I was really worried that you wouldn't be able to catch up. Knight Sorrow chuckled when he saw that the two god kings of darkness were getting closer and closer with his spiritual energy. If he simply sped up, the other party wouldn't be able to catch up. That would be too awkward. After the two dark divine kings sped up for a while, Knight Sorrow discovered that he wasn't far from the Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Phoenix King controlled by the three sovereigns. He immediately used the concealment array to hide again. What's going on? We actually lost him. The Dark Divine King, who was controlling the shuttle, had originally made a solemn vow. But just as he spoke, Knight Sorrow had shaken him off, and he immediately felt extremely displeased. The other Dark Divine King comforted, I'm guessing that he's definitely lacking in vitality and can't escape from the shuttle. Thus, he's trying to find a way to hide nearby. As long as we carefully search the area, we should be able to find him. At worst, we can just summon the Lord Ruler. This is already the end of the abyss. There shouldn't be any place for him to escape. What you say makes sense. But let's not summon the Lord Ruler for now. We'll try to capture him ourselves. The Dark Divine King, who had been controlling the shuttle, put it away. Then, he and the other Divine King began to search for Knight Sorrow's whereabouts. However, Knight Sorrow had hidden himself extremely well with the concealment array. They simply couldn't find any clues. As they searched, they approached the area where the three sovereigns were. At this moment, the three sovereigns knew that they were in the dark abyss. They had no intention of wandering around alone. They didn't want to encounter the sovereigns of the dark abyss. They were waiting for Knight Sorrow. After waiting for a long time, Night Sorrow didn't appear at all. The Dark Moon ruler immediately berated the Fire Phoenix King, asked him why he hasn't appeared yet. If you can't get the answer you want, I don't mind enjoying your beauty. Bastard! The Fire Phoenix King immediately glared at the Dark Moon ruler's threat. The Dragon Sparrow King, who knew the Fire Phoenix King's unyielding character, immediately said, I'll ask. I'll ask. My lords, don't be anxious. Hurry up and ask. Don't use any code words. The Dark Moon ruler glanced at the Dragon Sparrow King and immediately berated him. All right. I'll ask. The Dragon Sparrow King replied with a smile. Then, he spoke to the voice transmission stone, Lord Night Sorrow, where are you now? Did you encounter something? Although his words were simple, they were already reminding Night Sorrow of what to say. The Dark Moon ruler glared at him, but after pondering for a moment, he felt that there was nothing wrong with what he said. After a while, Night Sorrow, who had roughly guessed the Dragon Sparrow King's intentions, replied, the creatures of the dark abyss have already appeared in the forest. They discovered me. Right now, I'm hiding underground not far from you. Where exactly are you? We'll go pick you up. The Dragon Sparrow King said according to the Dark Moon ruler's instructions. When he said this, the Dragon Sparrow King felt somewhat apologetic. The Fire Phoenix King coldly snorted, feeling that he was too spineless. At this juncture, he was still cooperating with the other party. However, all of this was within Night Sorrow's calculations. Chapter 28:55. A large number of Divine King of Darkness. Does that mean Lord Night Sorrow has alarmed the ruler of the Dark Abyss? After Night Sorrow spoke, the Dark Moon ruler immediately asked Dragon Sparrow King. Right now, he was worried that Night Sorrow would be captured by the Divine King of the Dark Abyss or the ruler of the Dark Abyss. If he was intercepted and captured, the two sovereign artifacts would fall into the wrong hands. Things weren't as simple as he and the other two sovereigns thought. While Dragon Sparrow King asked Night Sorrow, the Dark Moon ruler looked at the other two and said, let's hurry over and capture Night Sorrow without alerting the ruler of the Dark Abyss. What do you think? There's no rush. Let's wait and see what Night Sorrow has to say. As the Overlord of all heaven replied, his gaze locked onto the voice transmission stone. He wanted to get some clues from Night Sorrow's words. Don't believe everything he says. The Overlord's voice was filled with suspicion. He felt that Night Sorrow's words were baiting them into doing something. I've encountered two Divine King and they're fighting. You two hide yourselves and wait for me to escape. I'll meet up with you two. As the three sovereigns watched, Night Sorrow's voice finally rang out. Then, in the distant void, a deafening sound could be heard. They're really fighting. Should we go over? The Divine King of all heaven immediately lost his composure when he saw the commotion in the distance. His thirst for the sovereign artifact was so great that he could barely control himself. The Overlord said, going isn't a problem. The problem is who goes and who doesn't. The three of us will go together. The Overlord of all heaven said. There were three sovereigns present, but there were only two sovereign artifacts. None of them wanted to stay behind to guard the teleportation formation. After all, their alliance was as fragile as paper. Whoever obtained the sovereign artifacts first would have the upper hand. Although the mighty Hegemon had said that he didn't want the sovereign artifact and only wanted to kill Hegemon Night Sorrow and Hegemon Voiceless, if the sovereign artifact fell into the hands of all heaven and Dark Moon first, who knew what the two of them would do? Thus, even he didn't want to stay behind to guard the teleportation formation. After thinking for a moment, he said, the three of us will set up a formation nearby. Then we'll go together. That's the only way. The Dark Moon ruler knew that the other two were thinking the same thing as him, and so he didn't say anything. He immediately set up the formation. The Overlord of all heaven also set up a formation. The Overlord was the last one to act. After she finished setting up the array pattern, the three of them looked at each other and chased after the source of the tremor. Overlord of all heaven didn't notice the Overlord of all heaven. At the same time, the Hegemon collected the Dragon Sparrow King and the Flame Phoenix King into his grotto heaven. At this moment, the Dark Moon ruler spoke out. Shouldn't we have let the two of them remain silent? You won't speak again. Good. The Overlord of all heaven smiled. Although he was an Overlord, the thought of having an Overlord artifact still excited him. However, he was already prepared to act. He was also prepared to guard against any sneak attacks from the other two Overlords. No one could remain calm in front of an Overlord artifact. Although the Overlord of all heaven said that he didn't want it, no one would believe him. There are creatures of darkness ahead. Night Sorrow's aura is also there. The three Overlords were extremely fast. They quickly arrived at the scene of the incident. The Dark Moon Overlord sensed with his divine sense and came to this conclusion. The Overlord of all heaven frowned. That's not right. Night Sorrow's aura is a remnant. He's no longer nearby. Could it be that he was no match for the Divine King, so he fled? The Overlord of all heaven speculated. That's easy. Capture the Divine King of the Dark Abyss and interrogate him. After saying that, the Dark Moon ruler directly struck out at the two God Kings of Darkness, quickly restraining them. What? Overlords. 3 of them. Enemy attack. It's an enemy attack from the deity realm. The Dark Divine King, who had been controlling the flying shuttle, was terrified out of his wits when he was captured by the Dark Moon Overlord. The other Divine King wasn't much better off. It was true that the Dark Abyss had an Overlord, but distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. Now that the two of them were under the control of an Overlord, their deaths were almost certain. You don't need to worry about whether or not it's an enemy attack. All you have to do is answer me properly. The Dark Moon Overlord grabbed one of the Divine Kings and used some sort of technique to separate them from each other and interrogate them separately. After asking, the two of them didn't know much about Yi Shang's situation. However, they did tell him all about the Overlords of the Dark Abyss. It turned out that there were 5 Overlords of Darkness in the Dark Abyss. One of them was even as strong as Overlord Tianai. It seems that we have to be careful. However, the closest one is Overlord Moxie. He's not much of a threat. We don't need to fear him. When Overlord All Heaven heard that the strongest Overlord of the Dark Abyss was as strong as Overlord Tianai, he immediately felt some fear and didn't want to alarm him. The Dark Moon Overlord had the same idea, but he didn't care too much about Overlord Moxie. Afterwards, the 3 Overlords began to search for Night Sorrow's traces in the area around Overlord Moxie. As they searched, they encountered more and more dark creatures, but they still didn't find Night Sorrow. This was because Night Sorrow had already arrived at the teleportation array. Night Sorrow couldn't tell that the 3 Overlords had set up the teleportation array, but he knew that they wouldn't be so careless. Thus, he didn't act rashly. He patiently observed his surroundings. Suddenly, a thought occurred to him. Night Sorrow discovered that he could set up a heaven and earth concealment array in his surroundings. If I set it up, even the 3 Overlords won't be able to find it. However, if I use up the materials, it'll be too difficult to gather another set. Although he discovered that he could set up a heaven-defying heaven and earth concealment array, Night Sorrow hesitated. If he set up the array here, it would be extremely difficult to gather enough materials to set up a heaven and earth concealment array for the immortal domain. After all, once he became the Divine King, he would work hard to create a clone and then head to the eternal sovereign world. However, once I set up this array, it'll be extremely easy to travel from the divine world to the Dark Abyss. It'll be extremely difficult to travel from the dark abyss to the divine world. I shouldn't have only cared about my family and not everyone. Chapter 28:56. If he ran out of materials, he could accumulate more. However, opportunities were fleeting. If he didn't seize the opportunity, it would be impossible to rescue the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King and leave the dark abyss. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that if he set up the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array and hid the teleportation formation within his own array, he would have complete control of the situation. He wouldn't have to worry about the three sovereigns chasing after him not giving up. Unless they wanted to fight the various sovereigns of the dark abyss. However, that was obviously impossible. Night Sorrow knew that the Dark Moon Ruler, the All-Heaven Ruler, and the Illustrious Ruler didn't have such courage. They only cared about their own interests. They wouldn't fight the sovereigns of the dark abyss under such circumstances. Heaven and Earth Concealment Array, activate. After deciding to set up the array, Night Sorrow immediately got to work. Very quickly, he activated the power of Heaven and Earth within 100,000 miles and set up the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array. After the array was set up, the area within 100,000 miles was completely under Night Sorrow's control. Under his control, the appearance of the area quickly changed. The forest was gone, replaced by a boundless ocean. Even the aura of the array set up by the three sovereigns had been sealed. Not good. The array's location has changed. I can no longer sense its existence. When Night Sorrow used the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array to conceal the aura of the three sovereigns, the Illustrious Ruler immediately realized that something was wrong. What? Could it be that we've been lured away? The Dark Moon Ruler also realized what was going on. As for the All-Heaven Ruler, when he realized what was going on, he immediately flew towards the teleportation formation. However, when he arrived near the formation, he was immediately stunned by the scene before him. The forest in his impression was gone, replaced by a vast ocean. It looked completely boundless. What's going on? The All-Heaven Ruler almost went crazy when he saw the ocean in front of him. One of the miraculous effects of the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array was that it could hide the teleportation formation in the void and change the terrain at will. I'm afraid that Night Sorrow set up an extremely profound array here. Although the hegemon didn't panic, his expression was unsightly. All this while, she had never thought much of Night Sorrow. She felt that he was just a slightly more talented divine lord who could defeat some divine king. This was a legendary achievement in the god realm. But against a sovereign like her, it was no threat at all. But now, when she saw the landscape in front of her and used her spiritual energy to investigate, she instantly discovered that everything was different. She could no longer detect the existence of the teleportation formation. This meant that if the three of them wanted to leave the dark abyss, they had to go through Night Sorrow. They had completely fallen into a passive position. Damn it, we should have left one of us behind to guard the teleportation array. What should we do now? The Dark Moon Ruler's face was dark and gloomy. The three of them had hoped to find Night Sorrow as soon as possible, but they hadn't imagined that they would fall for such a simple trick. This shouldn't have happened. But when he thought about it, under the circumstances at that time, who would be willing to stay here? It was Night Sorrow who knew exactly what they were thinking. What should we do? I think we should attack first before doing anything else. The Overlord of all heaven said irritably as he prepared to attack the ocean. By now, they had already killed two of Hegemon Moxie's subordinates, the Divine King. If they didn't respond, they would quickly be discovered. Once Hegemon Moxie discovered them, it would be the same as all five sovereigns of the Dark Abyss discovering them. If they still couldn't leave by then, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was very likely that all three of them would die in battle here. No, we can't attack. If you personally destroy the teleportation array, we'll lose our chance to leave. Although the Dark Moon ruler was similarly agitated, he didn't lose control. Instead, he shouted towards the boundless ocean, "Night Sorrow, I know that you set up this array. Come out and talk. You three sovereigns really do think highly of me. You actually joined forces and chased me all the way here." Night Sorrow's figure slowly rose from the depths of the ocean to the surface. He stood atop the waves and stared at the three sovereigns. He didn't mention the Blazing Phoenix King and the Dragon Sparrow King, as that would put him in a passive position. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, the Overlord smiled indifferently. "Night Sorrow, you are very outstanding. Against the three of us, even an ordinary divine king would feel despair. I admire you for being able to find a way to counterattack as a divine sovereign. Tell me, what will it take for us to leave the dark abyss through the teleportation array you control? The problem isn't what I want, but what you'll give me. If I didn't want you to bleed a little, I would have left long ago." Night Sorrow laughed coldly, tossing aside the Blazing Phoenix King and the Dragon Sparrow King. These words made the Overlord, the Dark Moon ruler, and the Overlord of all heaven realize just how serious the situation was. The current situation was exactly as Night Sorrow had said. If he wanted to, he could leave at any time. As for the three of them, tragedy would definitely befall them. You can ask for it yourself. As long as you want it, as long as I can do it. The Overlord had a smile on his face. However, this smile looked like the smile of a greedy wolf. What do the two of you think? Night Sorrow didn't speak immediately. Instead, he looked at the Dark Moon ruler and the Overlord of all heaven. "I think we should capture you first before we talk about anything else." While the Dark Moon ruler was deep in thought, the Overlord of all heaven made his move. After all, he had the strength of a ruler. In a flash, he appeared behind Night Sorrow and used his god domain to seal off all possible escape routes. At the same time, the Overlord of all heaven grabbed at Night Sorrow in an attempt to take him under his control. "All heaven, I think you don't want to leave." After all heaven made his move, Night Sorrow didn't move at all. After all, he was just a shadow on the wave. After one of Luo Tian's shadows was destroyed, Yishang's figure once again appeared on another wave 10,000 meters away. He said coldly, "I have two requests. As long as the Dark Moon ruler and Dark Moon ruler can fulfill them, I will agree to let you go." "What requests?" the Dark Moon ruler and Dark Moon ruler asked immediately. Although the two of them were usually high and mighty rulers, they were currently in a passive position. They didn't have the right to be arrogant, so their attitudes weren't bad. "If the two of you kill all heaven, I will let you go. I won't pursue the matter of you trying to kill me and steal my treasures." Chapter 28:57. Night Sorrow didn't mention the Dragon Sparrow Monarch and the Fire Phoenix Monarch, but he hadn't forgotten about them. "Bastard! Do you think an ant like you can sow discord between the three of us rulers?" The Great Lord of all heaven roared furiously when he heard Night Sorrow. However, he was clearly feeling guilty and immediately put his guard up against the illustrious ruler and the Dark Moon ruler. The illustrious ruler and the Dark Moon ruler, who had heard Night Sorrow's words, fell silent. Clearly, they were communicating telepathically. "You too. Don't tell me you're really going to listen to this ant." The All-Heaven ruler grew anxious when he saw the illustrious ruler and the Dark Moon ruler discussing telepathically. At that moment, the illustrious ruler looked at Night Sorrow and sneered. "We agree to your request. Let's kill Luo Tian, and we'll forget about this matter." Although the Dark Moon ruler didn't say anything, his gaze was fixed on the All-Heaven ruler. He was clearly prepared to attack. The current situation was extremely dangerous for him and the illustrious ruler. If the Dark Abyss ruler arrived, things would become even more difficult. After all, Night Sorrow held the initiative. If he insisted on playing hard, they would all be left in the dark abyss. Illustrious ruler, Dark Moon. You two are going back on your word. If you attack, all heaven will summon the dark abyss ruler even if it costs my life. At worst, we'll all die together. As all heaven spoke, he continuously studied the array before him. However, he couldn't figure anything out. In fact, he wasn't the only one. How could the illustrious ruler and the Dark Moon ruler give up so easily? However, they were completely stumped by the array and had no way of breaking it. The heaven and earth concealment formation was simply too profound. Although the sovereigns were powerful, they were helpless against it. All heaven, I'm afraid you don't have the strength to do so. The illustrious ruler's eyes flashed coldly as he immediately attacked the all-heaven ruler. You're courting death. Don't think that I'm afraid of you. All heaven roared when he saw the illustrious ruler attack. He wanted the dark abyss ruler to hear him. Dark Moon, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and cooperate with me. When he saw the all-heaven ruler's reaction, the illustrious hegemon said coldly. Towards Luo Tian, she did not have the slightest bit of pity. Good. Let's go, let's go. Hegemon Dark Moon let out a sigh, then attacked Hegemon All Heaven as well. After being suppressed by the two of them, Luo Tian flew into a rage and roared non-stop. Fighting 1 against 2, he had no chance of winning. And at this time, the ruler of the Dark Abyss hadn't arrived yet. Bastards, you're forcing this sovereign to go all out. The great sovereign of all heaven, who was being suppressed by the two great races, was completely enraged. He was already forced to use his ultimate technique. However, right at this moment, Night Sorrow spoke abruptly, "All right, stop. I suddenly felt that killing the ruler of the God World in the Dark Abyss would be detrimental to the God World. Dark Abyss, a sovereign is coming. If you three can kill it, I'll let you go. Furthermore, I will let bygones be bygones." You actually decided to let me go. The All-Heaven ruler, who had been prepared to fight to the death, was stunned when he heard Night Sorrow's words. What are you confused about? I never wanted to kill you in the first place. I just wanted to teach you a lesson. If you dare attack me again, I'll kill you. Night Sorrow coldly threatened, then looked at the three sovereigns and said, Lord Moxie of the Dark Abyss is already nearby, but he can't see us. In truth, he had ordered Xian He and Dark Moon to attack All Heaven for 2 reasons. First, he wanted to teach All Heaven a lesson, and second, he wanted to test Hegemon Dazzling. Night Sorrow was suspicious of Hegemon Dazzling. He suspected that she didn't have any feelings for the God World. When he had ordered the 2 of them to attack All Heaven, Xian He had indeed chosen to attack without hesitation. Moreover, there was a hint of smugness in his eyes. This proved many things. When Night Sorrow spoke, the 3 sovereigns looked in the direction he was pointing and were completely stunned. They had already seen Hegemon Moxie's figure, but he hadn't noticed them at all. What kind of technique is this? Dazzling Hegemon found it hard to believe that Hegemon Moxie hadn't noticed them at all. However, when he thought about it, they weren't sure where Night Sorrow was either. Hegemon Darkmoon's expression was similarly unsightly. They now understood how terrifying Night Sorrow's formation was. What are you hesitating for? There's only one Lord of Darkness nearby. Kill him immediately. Consider it your contribution to the God World. Otherwise, I won't let you leave. The Hegemon of Illustrious Hegemon and the Dark Moon Hegemon were both stunned by Night Sorrow's world-concealing formation. Fine. Kill him. Consider it our contribution to the God World. As for All Heaven, who was sweating profusely, he didn't hesitate to attack Hegemon Moxie. Under Night Sorrow's control, the space around them was completely under their control. Surprisingly, All Heaven's attack appeared right in front of Hegemon Moxie. Where did this midget come from? How dare you ambush me? Hegemon Moxie of the Dark Abyss was shocked when he saw all heaven's hegemon. Then, he ferociously attacked. However, at the same time, he realized that he was being ambushed by a hegemon of the god world. Wretch, who are you calling a midget? You're courting death. All heaven, who had been the first to attack, was enraged when he was called a midget. He was even angrier than when he had been attacked by dazzling hegemon and dark moon. As for hegemon dark moon, he glanced at dazzling hegemon, then at night sorrow. You're the virtuous sovereign. I hope you keep your word. Don't change your mind. We're hegemons with dignity. We're not monkeys to be toyed with. As long as you cooperate with me to kill hegemon Moxie, I'll definitely release you. Hegemon Tianai and hegemon Clear Sound, who are waiting outside, won't attack you. Night Sorrow hadn't planned on killing all heaven at all, which was why he had called for them to stop midway. He wasn't toying with them. Right now, he really did want the three hegemons to cooperate with him to kill hegemon Moxie. If they could kill him, Night Sorrow would definitely obtain a huge amount of virtuous virtue. That would be a huge gain. Its value couldn't be quantified. It was very likely that Night Sorrow would be able to control the laws of hegemons while still in the Divine King realm. He would be able to fight hegemons as a Divine King. Chapter 2858. Hegemon Moxie had no idea that he had already entered Night Sorrow's Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation. Night Sorrow had already taken complete control of the surrounding landscape and could change it at will. There was no way he could escape. After exchanging a blow with the Overlord of all Heaven, Hegemon Moxie quickly discovered the Overlord of all Heaven and the Overlord of the Dark Moon. He also discovered the existence of Night Sorrow and Tianyun Bao. Three hegemons and a divine sovereign who can control a hegemon artifact. This is a large-scale sneak attack from the God realm. After confirming this, Hegemon Moxie immediately used a secret technique to send a message to the other hegemons of the Dark Abyss. His secret technique was soundless and formless, but the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation was still able to block it. However, Night Sorrow ordered him to spread the news. Within the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation, he and the other three hegemons worked together to kill a hegemon. Even if the other hegemons of the Dark Abyss came together, he would be able to separate them and kill them one by one. That was, unless one of the Divine Kings was a hegemon in the Tao of Formations. Die. Call me a midget. See if I don't turn you into a midget. As soon as Hegemon Moxie sent out the signal for help, the Overlord of all Heaven, who had been in a bad mood this entire time, exploded and attacked him over and over again. All Heaven was much more frenzied than the others. It was almost as if he was using Hegemon Moxie as a punching bag. You're trying to start a large-scale war between the two sides. Don't think that the Dark Abyss doesn't have a teleportation formation to the God realm. Although Hegemon Moxie was fairly strong, he was outnumbered and outgunned. He was constantly at a disadvantage. In addition, he wanted to flee, but he didn't understand the laws contained within the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation. So what if a war breaks out? Once you're killed, the Dark Abyss will only have 4 hegemons left. The God Realm has 10 or so. You're no match for us. Die. Now that things had developed to this point, the Overlord of the Dark Moon temporarily gave up on trying to kill Night Sorrow and Tianyun Bao. He had already realized how special the formation Night Sorrow had set up was. If even the hegemons of the Dark Abyss couldn't escape, then they probably couldn't as well. After all, their understanding of formations wasn't all that outstanding. If they wanted to break the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation, they would have to be a top-tier formation master of the Heavens and Earth Concealment Formation. Moxie was the Overlord of the Heavens and Earth Realm Concealment Formation. Blindly confident people, you still don't know how powerful Sovereign One Meow of the Dark Abyss is. What awaits you shall's night destruction. Moxie Moxie. Hegemon Moxie's face was filled with reluctance, but in the face of the combined attacks of 3 hegemons and Night Sorrow, he was completely powerless to resist. Moxie 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 Modamane, Heaven, Heaven's wills Heaven's night heave, S night, S was heave Heaven Heaven. Hegemon Illustrious Hegemon Dark Moon, and Hegemon All Heaven weren't particularly strong, but they were definitely the most sinister and cunning of them all. They had planned everything out for Hegemon Moxie. There's no need for you to point fingers at us. No matter how strong your Hegemon Wanmia is, there are others in the God realm who can contend against him. As long as there are no autarchs, the Dark Abyss is no match for the God realm. Luo Tian's face grew crazier and crazier. In truth, his heart was extremely dark. After being mocked, he exploded with rage, causing even Night Sorrow and the others to feel a hint of fear. Moxie couldn't hold on any longer. He'd been waiting for Hegemon Wanmia to arrive. In the hearts of the Dark Abyss, Wanmia had suddenly risen to power. He was far stronger than any Hegemon in the past, and many suspected that he was the reincarnation of an autarch. Hegemon Wanmia, avenge me. Realizing that he had no power to resist, Moxie immediately considered self-detonating. The self-detonation of a Hegemon was many times more powerful than any Hegemon's attack. Even the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation would be greatly affected. Don't give him a chance to self-detonate. If he succeeds, he'll lose a large amount of hegemonic laws. Seeing that Moxie was about to self-detonate, Hegemon Dark Moon immediately spoke up. Hegemonic laws were extremely valuable, and they could even be used to raise a Hegemon. They were just as valuable as a Hegemon artifact. Moxie's self-detonation might be able to destroy the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation, but none of the 3 Hegemons, including Hegemon Wanmia, wanted him to lose even a sliver of hegemonic laws. All 3 of them used their most powerful techniques. Hegemon Wanmia even used a secret art to seal Moxie's soul in ice, causing him to instantly lose some of his will. To ordinary cultivators, this brief moment was nothing. However, to the Hegemons, it was an excellent opportunity. Hegemon Dark Moon and Hegemon Wanmia both used their most powerful techniques to deal a fatal blow to Moxie. 5 Elements Arrow Formation. In this situation, Night Sorrow also saw an opportunity. He began to use the 33 Heaven Secret Combat Art, using his strongest attack, the 5-element arrow formation. Just as Moxie was about to be killed, the 5 elements arrow formation landed viciously on his body. Boom! Moxie, who had already lost all ability to defend himself, disintegrated under their attacks. He transformed into a large amount of hegemonic laws in essence. Good stuff. I won't stand on ceremony. Hegemon Wanmia's face lit up with delight when he saw Moxie transform into a large amount of hegemonic laws in essence. Hegemon Dark Moon and Hegemon Wanmia also began to loot the Hegemons. Killing a Hegemon was an extremely rare occurrence. Although it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to obtain a Hegemon artifact, they were still very satisfied with what they had just gained. Although I won't be able to obtain all of the hegemonic laws in essence, with the help of the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation, I'll be able to obtain at least half. I can't even begin to imagine what I'll gain. As the 3 Hegemons began to loot the hegemonic laws in essence, Night Sorrow did the same. However, it seemed that his gains weren't even a fraction of what the 3 Hegemons were gaining. The 3 Hegemons couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. However, Night Sorrow had long since taken control of the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation and secretly transferred the hegemonic laws and essence away. By now, the 4 Hegemons of the Dark Abyss had already arrived. You deserve to die. One day, this Hegemon will slaughter his way to the God world and destroy you all. Hegemon Wanmia, the leader of the Dark Abyss, immediately roared when he realized that Moxie had already been killed. Chapter 28:59. The other hegemons of the darkness abyss were well aware of hegemon Wanmia's abilities. Since even he had stopped, the other hegemons immediately stopped and stood behind him. Night Sorrow, who was within the heaven and earth concealment formation, saw the appearance of one of the green-furred hegemons and immediately recalled some matters of the past. This green-furred hegemon had once crossed half his body into the god world and caused quite a stir. He immediately transmitted, "I'll settle this matter with you in the future." Who do you think you are? A divine lord dares to spout such nonsense in front of so many hegemons. I'll make you understand what it means to not offend a hegemon. The green-furred hegemon was immediately enraged by this warning. As he saw it, divine lords were ant-like existences who had no right to speak to him. Remember, there will be a battle between us. Night Sorrow had an extremely deep impression of this green-furred hegemon. If not for the fact that he had only been able to cross a small portion of the god world and couldn't unleash his true strength, Night Sorrow probably would have been killed. Now that they were meeting again, he immediately issued a challenge. The green-furred hegemon laughed sinisterly. "Kiki, if you have the ability, let's fight right now. Do you dare come out?" He knew that he couldn't enter Night Sorrow's current location. "Don't worry, it won't be too long before our battle." The moment he saw the green-furred hegemon, Night Sorrow knew that he had to fight him before leaving and completely resolve this matter. "I'll be waiting for you." The green-furred hegemon snorted and said no more. The Dark Moon hegemon said, "Should we leave?" Let's go. There's no need to get entangled with them." The hegemon thought for a moment, then nodded. Given the current situation, the best choice for her was to leave immediately. After replying to the Dark Moon hegemon, the hegemon turned to Night Sorrow and said, "Let's make a deal. Today's matter is written off. What do you think? In any case, no one lost out, so let's write it off. However, you have to release my two subordinates. Also, you have to promise that you won't attack us for the time being." Night Sorrow looked over at the Sovereign Lord, asking for the Dragonfinch King and Flamingo King. It was his intention to keep the matter under wraps until now and speak of it casually. On the other hand, he wasn't sure whether or not Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Clearsound were outside. If the three of them were outside and immediately turned hostile, things would become very difficult. "Alright, I, Xuanhe, agree to your request." Under these circumstances, although the mighty sovereign knew that the two divine king were important to Night Sorrow, she had already plundered quite a bit of the sovereign's laws and essence. She needed to return to her territory to absorb them, so she didn't bother too much. Hearing this, he released Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King and promised not to attack Night Sorrow and the others for the time being. I, the Dark Moon, also agree to your request. The Dark Moon ruler, who had also benefited from this, was in a good mood. He didn't dwell on this matter for too long, and he immediately swore an oath to the Tao of the Heavens. As for Luo Tian, he didn't waste any words either. Afterwards, the two sovereigns cooperated with the mighty sovereign to deactivate the formation they'd set up. Together with Night Sorrow, they stepped onto the teleportation formation. Activating the teleportation formation required quite a few divine crystals, but none of the people present were poor. They didn't haggle over this matter. Activate the power of the Dark Abyss and seal everything within 300,000 miles. After Night Sorrow and the others left, Hegemon Wanmia ordered the Dark Abyss ruler and the Divine King to cooperate with him and seal off Night Sorrow's heaven and earth concealment formation. At the same time, he said to the green-furred Hegemon, "Also, go take a look and see if the teleportation formations we set up can be used normally. If they can, I'm prepared to go to the God world and slaughter them all. Hegemon Moxie can't die in vain." Understood. Lord Wanmia. Upon receiving this order, the green-furred Hegemon immediately went to investigate the teleportation formations and summoning formations they'd set up. These formations were connected to the ones in the Immortal Dominion. If Hegeman Wan Mia and the others were to descend, the immortal dominion would be unable to withstand the pressure. At the same time, Night Sorrow and the other 3 sovereigns had successfully returned. To Night Sorrow's delight, Hegeman Tianai and Hegeman Clear Sound were already waiting for him when he and the other 3 sovereigns teleported back to Nine Heaven Shrine. Upon seeing Night Sorrow appear with the other sovereigns, Hegeman Dark Moon, and Overlord Luo Tian, Tinya's expression changed drastically. Hegeman Tinya's expression instantly changed. He snorted coldly and said, "How dare you? I already said that Hegemons aren't allowed to attack Nightfall. What are you doing now? Hegeman Tianai, we know that you've taken great care of Night Sorrow, but there has to be a reason for everything. Look, isn't Night Sorrow standing there completely unharmed? If we really wanted to attack him, would he still be in this state?" Hegeman Tianai immediately laughed when he saw Hegeman Tinya's anger. "Night Sorrow, what's going on here?" Hegeman Tinya's expression was extremely grim. He knew that Night Sorrow wasn't the type to speak without thinking. For him and Hegeman Clear Sound to be summoned here, there had to be something going on. At the start, they really did try to steal my sovereign artifact. However, once we arrived at the Darkness Abyss, we were forced to work together. We even managed to kill one of the Darkness Sovereigns. Night Sorrow gave a simple description of what had happened. He didn't exaggerate at all. Hegeman Tianai, Hegeman Dark Moon, and Overlord Luo Tian couldn't help but feel nervous. Hegeman Wan Mia was the absolute ruler of the Darkness Abyss. Hegeman Tianai was the undisputed #1 expert of the God world. All 3 of them felt fear in their hearts. In addition, Hegeman Tianai was currently holding the Sky Split Tower in his hands. He was definitely different from Night Sorrow when controlling his sovereign artifact. If he and Hegeman Clear Sound attacked at the same time, not even the 3 of them would be able to stop them. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, Hegeman Tianai paused for a moment, then said, "No matter what I say, it's wrong for you Hegemons to shamelessly attack a single divine sovereign. How about this? Give half of the purified sovereign edicts each of you obtained to Night Sorrow. That'll be the end of this matter." "What? Give half? Isn't that a bit too much?" Hegeman All Heaven muttered unhappily upon hearing Hegeman Tinya's words. "Shut up." Hegeman Dark Moon immediately rebuked All Heaven. Afraid that Hegeman Tianai would be angered, he smiled and said, "I'm willing to share my spoils." Chapter 2860. Seeing how cooperative the Dark Moon Hegeman was, Hegeman Tianai didn't say anything. He simply nodded, indicating that he could leave. As he left, Hegeman Tianai didn't warn him of anything. Hegeman Tianai forced out a smile and said, "I'm willing to give you half as well." He then reluctantly handed over half of his spoils to Night Sorrow. Since both of them had made such a choice, the All-Heaven Hegeman naturally wouldn't say anything more. He obediently handed over half of his spoils. After receiving the Hegemon's laws and essence, Night Sorrow now possessed roughly 75% of Hegemon Moxie's laws and purifications. This sort of harvest was simply astonishing. What's going on? Just as Night Sorrow was about to thank Hegeman Tianai and Hegeman Voiceless, suddenly, a large amount of karmic energy descended from the skies, as well as a bit of origin energy. Night Sorrow didn't even have time to react before this pure energy burrowed into his body. This should be your reward for killing the Hegemon of the Darkness Abyss. Hegemon Voiceless, who had remained silent this entire time, suddenly laughed. Not only had she and Hegemon Tianai hurried over, they had come in person. This was an enormous amount of face. "Thank you for dispelling my doubts, Hegemon Voiceless." As soon as Hegemon Voiceless finished speaking, Night Sorrow realized that this was a reward from the Heavenly Tao. There was a bit of a delay in receiving karmic energy, but the purity of the energy was quite good. He didn't lose out at all. After thanking Hegemon Clear Sound, Night Sorrow immediately split the essences and edicts he had obtained from the 3 Hegemons into 2 portions and gave them to Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Clear Sound. He said, "Actually, I've already obtained enough essences and edicts. Night Sorrow has no way of repaying the 2 of you for taking care of me. This is all I can do to express my gratitude. No need. I don't need this." As soon as Night Sorrow handed them over, Hegemon Tianai immediately refused. He said, "I took care of you because I see you as a junior and as a friend. There's no need for this." Hegemon Voiceless chuckled. "Keep this. Once you reach the Divine King, absorb it. It'll allow you to quickly increase your strength and improve your understanding of the Hegemon level. If nothing unexpected happens, you'll become the 8th Hegemon of the God Realm. The 2 of you have taken such good care of Night Sorrow, Night Sorrow wasn't normally a quiet person, but in the face of Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Voiceless, he really didn't know how to express his thanks. "Ha! Night Sorrow, you don't have to do this at all. Helping the younger generation is something that sovereigns should do. I'm sure you'll be able to join us soon." Hegemon Tianai laughed, then continued, "If I'm not mistaken, you will soon break through to the Divine King level. Given your foundation, as long as you break through to the Divine King level, you'll have a chance to contend against a Hegemon. Hegemon Clear Sound and I will fully support you in breaking through to the Divine King level as soon as possible. Yes. If you need anything, you can tell us." Hegemon Voiceless replied in an equally magnanimous manner. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said, "Speaking of needs, I don't have any. However, my family needs some materials to set up a heaven and earth concealment array. That way, they will be able to stay away from danger. I'm worried that someone will use my family to threaten me into handing over the Hegemon artifact. Your worries aren't without reason. What materials do you need? Tell us." Hegemon Tianai said magnanimously. He was the #1 expert of the deity realm. He definitely had far more resources than Night Sorrow. "I need." Yishan opened his mouth and listed a few materials that he lacked. He hadn't expected that Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Voiceless would be able to come up with all the materials he needed. These materials are extremely important to Night Sorrow. There's no way I can accept Night Sorrow's generosity for nothing. Here are the quintessence and laws of the Hegemons just now. The 2 of you must accept them. Otherwise, I'll feel really bad about it. Night Sorrow knew about these materials and how hard they were to come by. He had no intention of accepting them for nothing. Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Voiceless truly couldn't refuse. They accepted Night Sorrow's gift in return. Afterwards, Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Voiceless followed Night Sorrow to the Deathless Divine Realm. Night Sorrow was now completely at ease with the 2 of them. He took them to see his family. Upon seeing the 2 Hegemons, Night Moon's members were all rather excited. After all, these 2 were major figures who stood at the very peak of the deity realm. After properly entertaining the 2 Hegemons, Night Sorrow led them to the teleportation formation and summoning formation beneath the Deathless Divine Realm. He told them about his worries, about the dark Hegemons entering the deity realm from there. If they came to the God world from here, the immortal domain would be destroyed. That's a problem. At first, I didn't think it would be too dangerous and wanted to leave it for you to practice. But now, it seems that I'll have to set up some formations. At the very least, I'll know immediately if a Hegemon descends. Hegemon Tianai observed the formation for a moment, then began to set it up. Night Sorrow and Hegemon Voiceless also left behind their own formation runes, then the 3 of them left together. Night Sorrow sent Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Voiceless away, then returned to the Domain Chief's manor and began to set up the Heaven and Earth Concealment formation. Once he was done, he breathed a sigh of relief. He then gathered everyone from Night Moon's dynasty and announced, "I'll be going into seclusion to break through to the Divine King level. I won't come out until I reach the Divine King level." "What? You're going to break through to the Divine King level so soon?" No one from the Yi clan was surprised to hear Knight Soro's decision, but the Divine King Jin Ye sighed in disbelief. "Yes. My virtuous energy has already reached the Divine King level, and the energy I need isn't a problem. It's only a matter of time." Knight Soro explained to the Divine King Jin Ye, then continued, "While I'm in seclusion, everyone in the Deathless Divine Realm is to return to the Domain Chief's manor. Try not to go out. I'm afraid a great storm is about to descend upon the Deathless Divine Realm today." "All right. We understand." Everyone answered one after another. Although they didn't know what the storm Knight Soro was talking about was, they knew that they were powerless to resist it. Knight Soro looked at Long Tianqing, Divine Lord Chen Yuan, Mo Yuqian, and the others. "I've already obtained the recipe for the Heavenly 1000 Transformations pill. I'll refine it before I go into seclusion so that everyone can recover completely." "Knight Soro, thank you." Long Tianqing's eyes reddened when she heard this. She'd been worried about Divine Lord Chen Yuan's body all this time. Mo Yuqian and the other Divine Lords also became excited when they heard this. In the next few months, Knight Soro successfully refined the Heavenly 1000 Transformations pill under everyone's expectant gazes. He gave it to everyone who was injured. Chapter 2861. The Divine King was much, much stronger than the Divine Lord level. It wasn't easy to break through. However, Yi Shang's power of virtue had already reached the level of a lower God King. His comprehension of the ways of the world had completely taken shape, so he basically would not encounter any bottlenecks when breaking through to God King. It was basically a matter of time. In the accelerated space, Knight Soro cultivated for about 20,000 years. His Yuan Qi and Divine Soul had both reached the Divine King level. Not long after, thick tribulation clouds appeared in the sky above the Immortal Dominion. The terrifying pressure made the Night Moon Dynasty members in the Domain Master's manor unable to raise their heads. Everyone below the Divine King was like an ant. Only Jin Ye, Long Tianqing, Mo Yen, and a few others had the ability to look up. Everyone immediately realized that Knight Soro was about to undergo the Divine King's tribulation. If nothing unexpected happened, Knight Soro would be ranked 8th in the Divine World after he passed the Divine King's tribulation and became a Divine King. "Our immortal dominion can finally hold our heads high." Lin Piaomiao, who wasn't far from the Divine King's level, exclaimed when she saw the tribulation clouds. In the 200 years that Knight Soro had been in seclusion, many factions had reached out to the Immortal Dominion. However, none of the rulers had wanted to be involved. Ruler All Heaven, Ruler Dark Moon, and Ruler Illustrious, who didn't get along with the Immortal Dominion, were all in seclusion, absorbing Ruler Moxie's laws and essence. Although none of the rulers were involved, the Immortal Dominion didn't retaliate under Knight Soro's instructions. As a result, the Divine King's factions wanted a yard after taking an inch. Some had even fought their way to the Domain Master's manor and provoked them. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King were so angry that they almost attacked. However, they knew that they would follow Knight Soro into the Eternal Sovereign World in the future. They wouldn't be of much help to the Immortal Dominion, so they didn't do anything. From now on, my immortal domain will be completely different. In a short 200 years, Tran Hung had already become a half-step Divine Lord. Although he could not look at the sky, he still smiled in relief. As long as Knight Soro was here, the Deathless God Domain's soul would be unshakable. I feel like I'm about to make a breakthrough. At this moment, he, who had encountered a bottleneck in his cultivation, suddenly had an epiphany. He discovered that he had welcomed a turning point to break through to the Divine Lord realm. Tran Hung returned to the spatial Dharma artifact in the domain chief's mansion and began to cultivate before she could watch Night Sorrow go through the tribulation. King Yo Wu was a little envious of Tran Hung's opportunity to break through. However, he felt that he would break through soon, so he was not in a hurry. As for Night Sorrow's wives and children, because they had come to the God realm earlier, most of them had already broken through to the monarch God realm. However, the people, including Sikong Chuyu, could not lift their heads to watch Night Sorrow go through the tribulation. This made them a little depressed. There was a feeling of helplessness in his heart. However, Long Tianqing soon became the commentator for everyone. About 5 days later, Long Tianqing suddenly said, "The Divine King's tribulation has taken shape." An energy body formed by the purplish-black thunder tribulation energy appeared and attacked the clear sky pagoda in the void. Night Sorrow flew out of the clear sky pagoda and met it with a punch. He met it, and then what happened? Long Tianqing suddenly paused and did not continue. Night Sorrow's wife, Yang Lei, immediately asked anxiously. In fact, she was not the only one. Everyone from the Night Moon dynasty who was present had their hearts in their throats. Night Sorrow blasted the thunder tribulation energy body with a punch and disappeared without a trace. I wonder if he succeeded in going through the tribulation. Long Tianqing said doubtfully. She wasn't too sure what was going on. When she heard that Night Sorrow had blasted the energy body away, Yang Lei's face lit up. Then, she said, "No, if he succeeded, we would definitely be able to lift our heads." He probably didn't succeed. Boom! Just as Yang Lei finished speaking, the sound of a violent collision came from the void. He didn't succeed. The thunder tribulation energy body is much stronger than expected. Long Tianqing's voice trembled when she heard the sound of the collision. She had discovered that the thunder tribulation energy body contained a lot more energy than Night Sorrow's body. Furthermore, its attack seemed to contain a trace of a ruler's aura. Although this aura of a sovereign was very weak, it was still terrifying. This thunder tribulation energy body seems to be able to unleash a sovereign-level attack. Jin Nya, who had also discovered this, was also worried for Night Sorrow. Although the Sovereign and the Divine King were two adjacent realms and the Thunder Tribulation energy body contained very little of the Sovereign's power, its might was simply terrifying. When they heard this, the expressions of Sikong Chuyu, Yang Lei, Aoi, Shueshi, Datura, Lin Piaomiao and the others all changed. They had all advanced to Divine Lords and were very clear about what a trace of the Sovereign's power represented. Break for me. However, at this moment, Night Sorrow's roar came from the void. His roar shook the heavens and earth, but everyone's suspended hearts immediately calmed down. Then, Night Sorrow, who was completely engaged in battle with the Thunder Tribulation energy body, roared, "The Thunder Tribulation is nothing to be afraid of. My family doesn't need to worry about me." In comparison, the energy in Yishang's body was naturally not as much as the Lightning Tribulation energy body. However, he had a large amount of Yuan Qi recovery elixirs on him. With the help of these elixirs, the Lightning Tribulation energy body was slowly being consumed. A few days later, when the Thunder Tribulation energy body was completely depleted, a dazzling golden light bloomed in the sky above the immortal divine realm. The golden light has appeared. The Divine King has appeared. This is an auspicious sign. Night Sorrow has become the Divine King. Long Tianqing almost cried tears of joy when she saw the golden light. She was happy for Night Sorrow. The others in the immortal divine realm could finally raise their heads. At this moment, Yishang was floating in the air, surrounded by a golden light. He looked like a god that had descended to the mortal world, valiant and extraordinary. The golden light bloomed in the void and quickly spread to other parts of the divine realm. Soon, it spread to the entire world. Originally, the power of virtue had wanted to devour the golden light, but Night Sorrow had restrained it. Now that he had become the Divine King, he didn't want to keep a low profile. It didn't matter even if he had to sacrifice a little. Seeing the golden light coming from the immortal divine realm, Sovereign Tianai, who had been handling affairs in the sovereign manner, immediately summoned the Divine King of North Star to his manor. Prepare a congratulatory gift. Come with me to the immortal divine realm to congratulate the Divine King on becoming the Divine King. The immortal Divine King. Night Sorrow has become the Divine King so quickly. Is there a mistake? Chapter 2862. Are you doubting my judgment? Hegemon Tianai frowned when he heard Divine King Northstar's words. His opponent's words were far too brainless. He was the #1 expert of the god world. How could he possibly make a mistake like this? No, my lord. I'm not doubting you. It's just that Yi Shan has advanced to the God King realm in such a short period of time. This is simply too inconceivable. I'm afraid that he's the person who took the shortest amount of time to advance to the God King realm in the history of the God realm. The Divine King Northstar sighed. It hadn't been easy for him to break through to the Divine King level all those years ago. The significance of this matter doesn't mean that the God realm has gained another God King. Rather, it means that the God world has gained an 8th power. Hegemon Tianai explained, then continued, you may go. Understood. Although the Divine King Northstar wasn't a peerless genius, he wasn't stupid either. He immediately understood what Hegemon Tianai meant. This meant that once Night Sorrow broke through to the Divine King level, there was no Divine King who could match him. He was now the strongest person outside of the 7 hegemons. Soon after, Hegemon Tianai brought the Divine King Northstar to the Deathless Divine Realm. Hegemon Clear Sound, Hegemon Zhongkong, and Hegemon Sky Buddha all came to congratulate him. The dragons and those from Cloud Immortal Continent all rushed over as well. As for the other powers that had taken over the Deathless Divine Realm, they all withdrew as soon as they heard the news. Thank you all for coming. My husband has just broken through to the Divine King level and is in the process of stabilizing himself. Today, I'll take his place and welcome you all. While everyone was rushing over from all over the God world, Night Sorrow returned to the Clear Sky Pagoda to absorb the quintessence and laws he'd obtained from Hegemon Moxie. He wasn't satisfied with just breaking through to the Divine King level. He wanted to continue growing stronger. Sikong Chuyu was the one taking Night Sorrow's place. After all, she was Night Sorrow's first wife. She had a very special status in the Night Moon dynasty. Night Sorrow's other wives were here to help her. Good. It's the same with all of you taking care of him. Let him cultivate in peace. Hegemon Tianai chuckled in response. He knew exactly what Night Sorrow was doing, and so he didn't say anything. If even the #1 expert of the God world, Hegemon Tianai, didn't say anything, the others naturally wouldn't. Then, under the hospitality of the people from the Night Moon dynasty, everyone happily enjoyed the celebratory feast. From beginning to end, Night Sorrow did not appear at the banquet. Furthermore, for the next 300 years, Night Sorrow did not leave the vast Heaven Pagoda all along. In these 300 years, Mo Yuqian, God Monarch Zhen Yuan, and the others had all recovered and successfully came out of seclusion. Tran Heng and King Yawu had also become Divine Lords, becoming Divine Lord Tian Huang and Divine Lord Yawu. The two of them were very strong. They were very different from the ordinary divine monarchs of the divine realm. Moreover, they were also able to enforce the law with their words. As for Lin Piaomiao, she had already touched the barrier of the Divine King realm. She should be able to break through to the Divine King realm soon. At this point, the immortal domain was gradually stabilizing. Until one day, the tranquil immortal domain was suddenly shaken by an earth-shattering explosion. A sovereign of the dark abyss has descended upon the immortal domain. Before anyone in the immortal domain could react, Enchanting was the first to understand what was going on. Upon hearing this, the divine King Northstar immediately asked, "Your Excellency, a sovereign of the dark abyss has descended. This is a huge matter for the god world. Should we go and help? Only a single sovereign has come. If Night Sorrow comes out of seclusion, he probably won't need anyone else's help. However, he's currently cultivating and might not be able to come out to fight. Let's go take a look." After saying this, Enchanting and the divine King Northstar set off. Elsewhere, Enchanting Voiceless was also rushing to the immortal domain. As for the other sovereigns, they hadn't set up any runes around the teleportation formation. They didn't know that a sovereign of the dark abyss had descended upon the immortal domain. How is it? Night Sorrow hasn't come out of seclusion yet. By the time Enchanting and Voiceless arrived, the immortal domain was already in chaos. The sovereign of the dark abyss was none other than the green-furred sovereign that Night Sorrow had agreed to fight. As soon as he arrived, he began a frenzied slaughter. Because the domain master's manor was protected by the worldly concealment formation, none of the important figures of the Night Moon dynasty had been injured. However, Night Sorrow still hadn't come out of seclusion. Kill! 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 The green-furred sovereign was growing more and more frenzied. Seeing him wreak havoc, Enchanting Voiceless couldn't help but say, "I'll fight him." She and Enchanting hadn't immediately attacked because they wanted to give Night Sorrow a chance. Now that they saw the green-furred sovereign wreaking havoc, they couldn't hold back any longer. "I'll do it myself." However, just as Enchanting Voiceless was about to attack, Night Sorrow's figure suddenly emerged from the clear sky pagoda. He held the Samsara halberd in his hand, a confident expression on his face. He's finally come out of seclusion. Upon seeing Night Sorrow emerge, Enchanting and Enchanting Voiceless both smiled. Enchanting said, "Don't worry and fight him. If you can't beat him, I'll step in. I'm confident that I can defeat him." When Night Sorrow heard Enchanting's words, he turned his head and glanced at him. He glanced at his family, then flew in the direction of the green-furred sovereign. Enchanting and Enchanting Voiceless had brought the Yi clan's members into a spatial portal to watch the battle. Thus, it appeared that Night Sorrow and the two sovereigns had arrived together. The divine king and two sovereigns have arrived. The green-furred sovereign, who had been wreaking havoc, revealed a look of shock when he saw Night Sorrow, Enchanting and Enchanting Voiceless arrive. He hadn't expected to encounter two sovereigns as soon as he teleported to the divine realm. Why would two sovereigns, given their esteemed statuses, attack someone of your strength? Your opponent is me. Night Sorrow coldly rebuked the green-furred sovereign as he flew in front of him. Enchanting and Enchanting Voiceless retreated to the side to watch. The two of them wanted to see Night Sorrow's true potential. "It's you. You really dare to jump around in front of me." Upon discovering that it was Night Sorrow, the green-furred sovereign immediately spoke disdainfully. As he saw it, the divine king was still just the divine king. He was on a completely different level from the sovereigns. "I told you that there would be a battle between us. I just didn't expect you to come to the divine realm to throw your life away." Upon seeing the destruction of the immortal divine realm and the cultivators that had been devoured, Night Sorrow's anger instantly soared. "Then let's see if you have the ability to do so." The green-furred sovereign had no intention of looking at Night Sorrow. He sneered, "Then attack immediately and let me see if you have the strength to fight." While speaking to Night Sorrow, the green-furred sovereign had been paying attention to Enchanting and Enchanting Voiceless. Chapter 2863. Enchanting chuckled when he realized that the green-furred Enchanting had been paying attention to him. Given your strength, you won't be able to block my attacks even if you defend with all your might. I won't stoop to attacking you. Although they were both hegemons, the difference in strength between them was like two whole realms. Hegemon Tianai didn't view the green-furred hegemon as an opponent at all. Hegemon Voiceless Sound said, "You're gauging the stature of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. I won't stoop to attacking you either. Since that's the case, just focus on how I'll kill this ant." After confirming that Hegemon Voiceless Sound and Tianai wouldn't attack him, the green-furred hegemon focused all his attention on Night Sorrow. "You'll soon understand that your worries are unnecessary. I don't need the two of them to deal with you." Seeing that the green-furred hegemon had focused his attention on him, Night Sorrow, wielding the Samsara halberd, immediately thrust his spear at him. This spear looked similar to the forbidden reincarnation spear, but it was infused with hegemon laws and was clearly not ordinary. "Oh. You're quite capable." The green-furred hegemon was slightly surprised to see Night Sorrow's attack. He realized that Night Sorrow's attack was no different from an ordinary hegemon's. Whether in terms of laws or strength, it wasn't inferior to his. In that instant, he immediately focused his attention. He used a vine-like arm to wrap around the incoming reincarnation spear. However, he still underestimated Night Sorrow. With a boom, the green-furred hegemon's arm was shattered. Good. Night Sorrow is no different from an ordinary hegemon in terms of strength. It's truly a blessing that such a genius has appeared in the God realm. Hegemon Tianai had a gratified smile on his face as he watched Night Sorrow's performance. Although the God realm had 7 hegemons, a few of them had bad characters and wouldn't fight for the God realm with all their strength. For a divine king of virtue like Night Sorrow to appear was the God realm's fortune. A lower divine king fighting a lower hegemon is the first time in the God realm. This is an epic-making event. Should we hurry and let the others watch? Hegemon Voiceless Sound wanted the entire God realm to watch this battle. Without question, if the cultivators of the God realm could see this battle, they would be greatly encouraged. There's no need for that. The ethereal mountain and the dark abyss aren't under much pressure. There's no need to motivate everyone. Hegemon Tianai shook his head. It's enough that you and I know about this. Don't let this leak out. Fine. My people won't say a word. Hegemon Voiceless nodded. She gazed at Nightsis. She had a lot to ask. Was to Voiceless Sound. At this moment, Hegemon Tianai continued, the battle between the two of them has caused unnecessary damage. Let's help set up some defensive formations. Yes, I know. Voicle to attention to attention T, S gods as hedos SS. S to T to US re S. When Hegemon Voiceless Sound and Tianai attacked, the green-furred hegemon thought they were targeting him. Because of that, Night Sorrow's spear pierced through his body. It seems I've underestimated you. I should have treated you like a hegemon. If my guess is correct, what you've absorbed and comprehended is Hegemon Moxie's laws and essence. Injured, the green-furred hegemon roared in fury, completely erupting with his brotherly instincts. He couldn't help but revert to his original appearance. He was no longer in human form. What kind of creature is this? How can it be so ugly? The Yi clan members in Hegemon Tianai's paradise sighed when they saw the green-furred hegemon's appearance. Although creatures of the dark abyss could revert to human form, their true forms were so ugly that they couldn't bear to look at them directly. This is his laws and essence. You'll have yours in the future. Night Sorrow brandished his Samsara halberd, creating a black hole in space. Shameless boasting. I haven't even used any of my techniques yet. When the green-furred hegemon saw Night Sorrow brandish his Samsara halberd again, he immediately summoned countless tentacles to block the attack. However, Night Sorrow, who had advanced to the Divine King level, was unstoppable. Without much effort, he shattered all of the green-furred hegemon's tentacles. Is this the technique you were talking about? After shattering the green-furred hegemon's tentacles, Night Sorrow immediately used his power of virtue to launch another attack. Night Sorrow's power of virtue had already reached the peak of the Lesser Divine King level. When he used it, he transformed into a golden dragon, fighting alongside Night Sorrow like a war pet. I didn't expect your merit power to be so powerful. The green-furred hegemon roared in shock when he saw that Night Sorrow could unleash such a powerful power of God. Then, his expression changed into one of disdain. But this alone isn't enough to fight against me. As he spoke, he took out a gourd-shaped divine artifact from his spatial artifact. He said, "Collect." The gourd-shaped divine artifact immediately sucked in all of the dragons of virtue. That's a sovereign artifact. Night Sorrow, you must be careful. Don't you also have a sovereign artifact? Just use it immediately. Hegemon T&I couldn't help but warn him when he saw what the green-furred hegemon was doing. Okay, I'll be careful. In truth, even without Hegemon T&I's warning, Night Sorrow could sense that the green-furred hegemon had taken out a sovereign artifact. He didn't panic, nor did he take out a sovereign artifact. Instead, he brandished his Samsara halberd again and continued to fight. Even without the help of the sovereign artifact and the power of virtue, Night Sorrow wasn't at a disadvantage. Although he was only a divine lord, he had accumulated far too much, and his luck was astonishing. He wasn't at a disadvantage at all. He quickly suppressed the green-furred hegemon once more. Just as they were madly fighting, Night Sorrow's other figure appeared in the Tianyun school. He handed Tianyun Bao over to Mu Baiyu, bade her farewell, then turned and left the Tianyun school. Mu Baiyu didn't know why, but when she saw Night Sorrow's departing figure, she felt like crying. This was something she hadn't experienced in many years. After returning Tianyun Bao, Night Sorrow returned to the immortal domain with another figure to watch his other body fight. The Night Sorrow fighting the green-furred hegemon was actually his clone. Due to the arrival of the ancestral phoenix, no one present had discovered Night Sorrow's true body. After personally witnessing his clone slay the hegemon of the Dark Abyss, Night Sorrow nodded in relief. Chapter 2864. Aren't you going to reunite with your family before leaving? Ancestor Phoenix asked doubtfully when he heard Night Sorrow's message. He was prepared to give Night Sorrow 10 years to reunite with his family. There's no need. No matter how many years I stay, I'll still have to solve the problem. Rather than stay in the God world for a few years in fear, it's better to go to the Eternal Paragon world and solve the problem. He glanced once more in Sovereign Tinya's direction as he spoke resolutely. He was more reluctant to leave his family than anyone else, but for the sake of the God world's safety, he had to leave. Now that he saw Ancestor Phoenix's true body, he knew that the Eternal Paragon world's crisis wasn't something that could be solved by hiding in the God world. Not only was their number one expert missing, but they were also lacking in potential experts. Their luck was very bad. And in this cycle of reincarnation, the other realms of the Eternal Paragon world were filled with geniuses. The God world's future was bleak and bleak. If you have such thoughts, it means I wasn't wrong about you. Let's go. Ancestor Phoenix nodded. Being in the depths of the vortex, he knew better than Night Sorrow about the God world's worrisome situation. He didn't even have time to catch up with old friends. At this time, inside Yishang's heavenly grotto, the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King were crying their eyes out. Seeing their benefactor, the ancestral phoenix, again made them so emotional that they were weeping. Lord Ancestor Phoenix, can we go to your old residence to take a look? My elders and wife are receiving their inheritance there. I wonder how they're doing. I'm only worried about them right now. Night Sorrow said. He was very worried that Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei hadn't come out of seclusion yet. As for his other family members, they were all in the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation in the Eternal Domain. They were protected by their clones, and had grown up. He wasn't too worried. All right. Let's go. Ancestor Phoenix was as strong as Night Sorrow in the lower realms. It was difficult to quantify his strength. Soon, he brought Night Sorrow to Ancestor Phoenix's lair. It's still the same as before. Not much has changed. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix's eyes flickered when he saw the scene in the Ancestral Phoenix's lair. It was obvious that he had recalled something that had happened in the past. At this time, he saw that the fire phoenix guarding the nest had already grown to the level of the Divine King. He immediately said with gratification, "Very good, you didn't disappoint me. The Fire Phoenix King once told me that she wanted to follow you to the Eternal Supreme World and fight alongside you." Night Sorrow, who was standing beside the Ancestor Phoenix, saw that he was reminiscing about the past and immediately told him what the Fire Phoenix monarch was thinking. Sigh. Perhaps it was because of my selfishness, but I didn't want the children to go to the Eternal Supreme World. That was a cruel place after all. Whether it's in the Divine World or in other realms, it's very dangerous. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix let out a sigh. He was well aware that there were many people in Night Sorrow's space paradise, but he did not expose them. If one hears the Tao in the morning, one can die without regrets in the evening. If we leave them in the Divine World, there will be nothing to protect. They will be even more lost. Night Sorrow continued to speak on behalf of Dragon Sparrow King, Fire Phoenix King, and the others. He hoped that Supreme Ancestor Phoenix would take these people with him. Speaking of which, they did not belong to the Divine World at all. You have a point. Then let's take them. With my ability, I can still protect the children. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix sighed. He had not released his divine domain, but there was an indescribable Tao aura around him. Great! Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King clenched their fists when they heard this. As for Mo Yen, who was beside them, he had been very quiet. He did not say anything, but his eyes were also shining with tears. Xiao Tianchuan's clansmen and the Horn clan did not speak. They did not even have the Divine King among them. If they went there, they would definitely be a burden. Therefore, they felt guilty in their hearts. Supreme Ancestor, how are my two family members now? After talking to Supreme Ancestor Phoenix about bringing people across the Divine World, Night Sorrow asked about Wu Lingfei and Jing Yun. Wait for me to take a look. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix responded to Yishang, and then released the power of his soul to investigate. After a moment, he said in surprise, after they fused their bloodlines, although their talent is not as good as yours, it is enough for them to become the ruler of the Eternal Supreme World. Do you want to take them with you? Can they become the ruler of the Eternal Supreme World? Night Sorrow was silent for a while before continuing. After they finish fusing their bloodlines, let's see what they want. In fact, he knew that his other wife, Lin Piaomiao, also had outstanding talent after awakening her bloodline. But he could not bear to bring her to such a cruel Eternal Supreme World. Okay. Originally, they still needed 1,000 years to completely fuse their bloodlines. But let me help them quickly absorb it. After all, we can't afford to waste 1,000 years. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix said. She waved her hand and fired several glows. Under the illumination of these halos, the entire ancestral phoenix nest was like a phoenix undergoing nirvana, blooming with vitality. That kind of vitality was thousands of times stronger than just now. My lord, is my lord back? Fire Phoenix, who was guarding the ancestral phoenix nest with people, immediately became excited. The scene in front of her was something she had often seen before she had risen. It's me. This time, Supreme Ancestor Phoenix directly appeared in front of Fire Phoenix King. Then, he said to Night Sorrow, "Let them out too." Okay. Hearing this, Night Sorrow immediately summoned Dragon Sparrow King, Fire Phoenix King, Mo Yen, and the others who were related to Supreme Ancestor Phoenix out of the Space Grotto Heaven. Then, 7 days passed quickly as everyone exchanged greetings. On the 7th day, Supreme Ancestor Phoenix looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Your 2 family members are about to come out of seclusion." Just as he finished speaking, 2 consecutive phoenix cries rang out in the void. 2 fiery red figures rushed out of the small world one after another. What? They have already become Divine King. Their strength has increased so quickly. Night Sorrow used his divine soul power to investigate and immediately found that Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei had already become Divine King. This made him extremely surprised. Especially Wu Lingfei, who had just broken through to the Divine Lord realm when she came here. Don't be surprised. Originally, they should have broken through to the Divine King after 1,000 years, but I used some methods. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix said with a smile and continued, "Go and ask them if they are willing to go to the Eternal Supreme World with you. The current Divine Realm territory needs such geniuses." Okay. I'll talk to them. To be honest, I don't want my family to go to the Eternal Supreme World with me. Chapter 2865. Night Sorrow, I understand what you're thinking. If it were me, I wouldn't want my family to appear in the Eternal Supreme Realm either. The so-called Eternal Supreme Realm is, in fact, a huge azure field. It's filled with slaughter. And with worries, there's a weakness. This is also the reason why I left my bloodline in the God realm. The Ancestor Phoenix sighed as he looked at Night Sorrow's back. As someone who had experienced it, he understood Night Sorrow's thoughts very well. Night Sorrow, who had flown into the sky, came to Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei's side. He said excitedly, "Congratulations to the 2 of you for both advancing to the Divine King level. Thanks to you for bringing us here, we've inherited the Ancestor Phoenix bloodline and a large amount of nomological power." When Wu Lingfei saw Yi Shang appear, she smiled faintly. Jing Yun, who was looking at Night Sorrow, said excitedly, "Husband, you've also advanced to the Divine King level. That's great. I also advanced by luck." Night Sorrow didn't mention the difficulties of advancing to the Divine King level. He stood beside the 2 women and pointed at the Ancestor Phoenix. "This is Lord Ancestor Phoenix. He's already surpassed the ruler realm and became a sovereign. I'll take you to thank him for his gift first, then we'll talk about something else." "What? This is Lord Ancestor." Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei both became excited when they saw where Night Sorrow was pointing. The 2 of them were both descendants of the Ancestor Phoenix, so they naturally addressed him differently from Night Sorrow. They flew to the Ancestor Phoenix's position side by side and knelt down. "Greetings, Ancestor." Get up. 2 good children, your talents are already close to mine. I'm very pleased to see the 2 of you. A smile appeared on the Ancestor Phoenix's face. Although he didn't know which bloodline Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei came from, they were definitely his bloodline. "Thank you for your gift, Ancestor." Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei felt like they were in a dream. They thanked him but didn't get up. "Get up. Since you're family, there's no need to be so polite." The more Supreme Ancestor Phoenix looked at the 2 ladies, the more he liked them. After helping them up, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, "You can tell me now." "Good. Lord Supreme." Night Sorrow nodded, and then told Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei about the Eternal Supreme World, as well as the fact that he had cultivated a clone and was about to go on an expedition. Furthermore, he analyzed the tragedy of the Eternal Supreme World word by word. Hearing this, Jing Yun immediately asked, "Then, are all the sisters staying in the Divine Realm?" We'll all stay in the divine realm. In fact, I hope that you'll choose to stay as well, but I'll respect your opinion." Night Sorrow glanced at Ancestor Phoenix and said, "If none of the sisters are going, then there's definitely no one to take care of you. I choose to go with you." Jingyun made her choice without any hesitation. She didn't want to be separated from Night Sorrow's main body after cultivating for so many years. Even if there was no difference between a clone and the main body, it was still a clone after all. It was still different. "Good. I'll support your choice." Night Sorrow nodded, and then looked at Wu Lingfei and said, "Aunt Fei, what's your choice?" In fact, when he said this, he already knew what she meant. At this moment, Wu Lingfei said longingly, "I don't want to leave you guys. I want to fight side by side with you and Jingyun." Sigh, "All right. I'll respect your choice." Night Sorrow sighed, and then looked at Ancestor Phoenix and said, "Lord Supreme, let's go." "Good. I'll immediately open the passage to the Eternal Supreme World." After saying this, Ancestor Phoenix waved her hand, and everyone present was taken into the space paradise. Then, she rose against the wind and soared into the sky. After flying to a height that Night Sorrow and the others couldn't reach, she opened a passage in the void and entered the Eternal Supreme World. After crossing the boundary, Ancestor Phoenix explained, "This passage is an extremely secretive existence. Only a few people in the Divine Realm know about it. In the future, if the Divine Realm loses in the Eternal Supreme World, they can temporarily transfer everyone back to the Divine Realm and plan to make a comeback. Of course, if the opponents in the Eternal Supreme World discover this void gate, the consequences will be devastating. Therefore, except for Night Sorrow, I'll erase the memories of the rest of you." After saying this, Ancestor Phoenix used a method to erase everyone's memories. As for Night Sorrow, he was the hope that Ancestor Phoenix and the others had high hopes for. He had the right to know this. "Even if Night Sorrow dies in battle, I won't expose this passage." Night Sorrow, the only one who knew about the passage, said to Ancestor Phoenix telepathically, "You're more important to the Divine Realm and the Divine Realm than this passage. At the critical moment, you'd rather reveal the passage to protect yourself." Supreme Phoenix Ancestor replied in a serious tone. When he heard this, Night Sorrow immediately asked doubtfully, "Your Excellency, is the territory of the God Realms so difficult in the Eternal Sovereign Realm?" The other party's words were filled with pessimism and despair, making him feel a suffocating pressure. "The Divine Realm's fortune is almost gone. And you are the only chance of survival for the Divine Realm according to our calculations." While they were flying towards a city in the territory of the God Realm, the Ancestor Phoenix explained helplessly, "Good. I'm mentally prepared." Ancestor Phoenix's words were not for the others to hear. Night Sorrow was prepared for everything in his heart. After all, the Divine Realm and the 9 Regions world were likely to be destroyed if the Divine Realm was destroyed. He had to hold back the hand of fate. He did not want it to sink and smash everything. "When we reach the main city, I'll make arrangements for the others. Then, I'll bring you and the 2 of them to meet some important people," Ancestor Phoenix said as they approached the city of the Divine Realm. She also told Night Sorrow how to make arrangements for these people. Although the Fire Phoenix King and the others were already the Divine King, they were just ordinary existences in the Eternal Supreme World. At present, there was no chance for them to fight at all. They could only do some service work in the rear. Only when they advanced to the Dominator level could they really participate in the battle. The battle in the Eternal Supreme World was somewhat different from the Divine Realm. The battle in the Divine Realm usually involved tens of millions of cultivators, but the battle in the Eternal Supreme World was basically not too big. The battle between the 2 realms might send out a large number of puppets or demons, but the people who really participated in the battle basically did not exceed 30 people. However, it would be a battle of the elite level. Often, the Dominators or Supremes would be sent out. Among them, the Dominators were the most important main force. If the Divine King appeared, they were likely to be killed in one move. Lord, we will cultivate well and strive to break through to the Dominator level quickly. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.